Good. Okay. Good morning and welcome to the meeting of the Education, Sport and Children's Services Committee, which is being conducted from the Chamber and remotely through Microsoft Teams. Please note that there is no translation facilities for this meeting, so can I please ask all members and officers to conduct discussions in English. Please ensure your microphones are off, and before we begin, I would like to invite Councillor Callum McLean to lead us in prayer. Thanks, Callum.
Lord our God, we come into your presence again this morning, acknowledging our need of the Saviour who intercedes for sinners like we, because we cannot come into the presence of a holy God without the righteousness of Christ. And we bless you, O Lord, for your goodness to us in giving us such a Saviour who is still, as he was in the time of his walking in this world, seeking sinners to repent of their sins. And we come, O God, acknowledging our need of him, of his righteousness, of all he gives to us. And we give thanks, O Lord, for your goodness to us in giving us the health and strength to be present here this morning. And as we deliberate over the matters concerning the education of the authority, we ask that you would bless those who are going about their duties. We think of the Chief Executive here, who is starting for the first time. We give thanks for him and we ask that you would bless him and be with the Chief Officer here, be with him and his staff. And we give thanks, O Lord, for the standard of education that we have in our islands and those who perform their duty so well. Go with us all, we pray thee, and all the officers here present, we ask that you would bless them as well. And be with the chair here as he chairs the meeting. Be with us as we discuss one with another the matters concerning the education. We ask, O Lord, that you would bless us all. Remember those who are laid aside, who cannot come out this day, that you would be with them for whatever reason, that you would be with them. Remember those that are sick in our communities and those who are undergoing treatment with the nurses and the doctors. We give thanks, O Lord, for the skills of these people. And you would be with those that are lonely today, those that are in their own homes. And we ask you, O God, that you would be near to them and bless them. Be with our young people as well. We ask, O Lord, that you would bless them. Be with them as they are undergoing the education in our schools and our colleges. We ask, O Lord, that you would be with them and keep them and lead them and guide them and present yourself to them as the hope that they have, the hope of not only in this life, but the life to come. O Lord, be with us all, we pray thee. Wash us in the precious blood of Jesus, and we ask it for his sake. Amen.
Thanks, Councillor McLean. I would like to formally welcome Mr. Martin Joyce, who is attending his first meeting of the committee following his appointment as Chief Executive. And I would also like to highlight some good news to members before we move on to the formal agenda. Right, so we'll start. So where are we? Film G. I would like to note the congratulations on behalf of the committee to all young filmmakers across our schools that entered this year's Film G Gaelic short film competition. Special mention to the 3 winners from the Western Isles. Under 12 Heritage Film Sconlock, Under 18 Performance Award, Castle Bay School, and the Under 18 G Choice Award, the Nicholson Institute. Cuachnaklenia. Finals for the annual Gaelic football competition Cuachnaklenia were recently held in Inverness. There were separate competitions for GME pupils from primary and secondary. In the primary competition, 5-a-side teams from Sconlock and Dalyborough School qualified for the national final. Sconlock made it all the way to the grand final, but were very unlucky to lose out to Inverness Gaelic School on penalties. Well done to all who took part. The secondary competition saw the Nicholson Institute, Surrey Scott, Sconlock and Castle Bay School all representing the Western Isles in the national finals. The Nicholson Institute team were victorious, beating Glasgow Gaelic School in the grand final, winning the trophy for the second year in a row. Euro quiz. Once again, this year, the Western Isles were represented at the National Euro Quiz Finals in Edinburgh. After winning the local heats in March, Back School went on to compete in the national finals, performing very well indeed against teams from across the nation. They finished an impressive 8th overall. Local mods. Since the last sitting of the committee, there has been very successful local mods held in Uist and in Lewis. These annual events saw many children from across our schools competing in various competitions for poetry, storytelling, solo singing, choirs, instrumentals, and drama. There are too many individual winners to list here, but I wish to congratulate each and every participant and prize winner, and to the schools and parents that support them. The success of the local mods is testament to the support for Gaelic language and cultural activity across our communities. Don Stewart Memorial Prizes. Each year, 2 prizes are awarded by the Don Stewart Memorial Trust to senior school pupils in the Western Isles. One prize is awarded for significant contribution to Gaelic development, and the other is awarded in recognition of outstanding achievement. This year, the prizes were awarded as follows. The Don Stewart Memorial Award for significant contribution to Gaelic development was Laura MacLeod, S6 from Castle Bay School. And the Don Stewart Memorial Award for Outstanding Achievement was Abby Stewart, S6 at the Nicholson Institute. The Scottish Youth Parliament. Ross Irving, Castle Bay School pupil and member of the Scottish Youth Parliament for Eilean, recently attended the 84th sitting of the Scottish Youth Parliament in Stirling, joining young representatives from across Scotland to discuss key issues affecting young people. National Engineering Competition. 2 pupils from Park School went to the National Engineering Competition, and we had a winner in Phoebe Morrison, who was the winner, and Tiana Hodgson, who was highly commended. So we'd just like to congratulate both of those. So I just wanted to say one thing here about this. Nearly all of these good news stories are on the mainland. There's schools travelling to the mainland. And so I think it's important that we acknowledge the commitment of pupils, teachers and families who make this happen all the time. There's a lot of fundraising going on, and there's a lot of work done behind the scenes to make this happen. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that, you know, the support that parents and pupils and teachers give to the youngsters to allow them to actually compete at these competitions. And it goes much further than this. I mean, this is just the good news for this meeting, but as you all know, there's all the sports committees and everything that happens in the islands, and I just wanted to acknowledge that with this committee. Okay, thanks. Right, so move on. Please note that items 14, 15, 16 will be taken in private at the end of the meeting, and item 16 has been withdrawn and will be reported to the Corporate Workforce Panel. A reminder that the meeting is being recorded and will be made available on the caller's website following the meeting. So we'll move on to business proper. First, it's not been withdrawn, so it's been put back again.
It's never been off.
It's never been off,
Just
right? Okay. Correction, item 16 has not been withdrawn and is actually going to be on the agenda. Okay, thanks. So, yeah, Councillor Mackenzie.
Yeah. Item 14A, which is down to be taken in private.
Yeah.
I asked this to go on to the agenda, and it has been, and we had a report up till now, but I don't see why, and I said this last meeting, why this the non-commercial details cannot be given at this meeting, so that people know what's going on. I mean, this matter's been dragging on not since December 2024, but for a decade or more. So can we not give a general position as to why there's been such a delay and what we're doing to overcome it? You know, I think it's only fair to the people who are affected.
Yeah, the challenge we've got, thanks, Councillor Mackenzie, the challenge we've got obviously is any news that's going out, the contractors that are involved or get to hear about what's going on, what's happening. And this has an a knock-on effect for other people within that market, and so that's why it has to be kept in private for those particular reasons. I think Donald will just follow up if you want to follow up.
Yeah, happy to do so, Chair. The report has continued to be taken in private because issues relating to delays and questions and debate around that are all intrinsically linked to the contract award for the supplier of the building and to other contracts pertaining to it. So to permit debate and to be able to explain to members the specifics of what's occurring around the project, it is required to be undertaken in private. But I wish to reassure the Chamber as well that we have continued to provide communication to the key stakeholders for this project, including having personally attended the Stornoway Primary Parent Council and having continued to give updates to them and to the parent forum at the school.
Sorry. So it appears that, that we're going to get some sort of decision in the next couple of weeks, unfortunately, after the series of meetings, one way or another. And, can we be kept? I mean, September is the next series of meetings.
Well, we're taking it into private, so it'll be discussed today as normal, so we'll be able to discuss it further.
Okay.
We'll be taking it into private, yeah.
Okay.
Right, cheers, thanks, Councillor. Right, so we'll move on. Let me think. Right, so item 1, the minute of the meeting of the 24th of March 2026. Oh, Derek.
Just to advise the committee, there's an amendment to the minute. Councillor Malcolm MacDonald was present, and we will update that minute.
Okay, right, thanks. So with that in mind, do members agree to approve the minute? Right, thanks. So we'll move on to item 2, which is a declaration of interest. Members are asked to declare any interest they have on any items on the agenda. It would be helpful if members expressed why they are declaring an interest in the item concerned. Members in the meeting, please do so now by pressing your microphone or remotely through Teams by using the raised hand function. And please ensure that the declaration, as usual, is repeated prior to the relevant item and you adhere to the protocol as previously described. And does anybody have any declarations of interest to declare? Okey-dokey. That's great. Right, we'll move on to item 4, which is performance monitoring, and that's the outcome delivery report. This report, item 3 details the leader wants in. Yep.
So it was declaration.
Yep.
Sorry. Item. What's it now? 8 relates to my brother, so I will.
Which one's that? Say I can't.
Item 8.
Item 8.
Yeah.
Okay. And what's the why is the declaration? Okay, right, family. Okay. Right, we'll move on to item 3, not item 4, item 3. So it's the outcome delivery report, and this details the NGA progress of the 2025-26 departmental strategic priorities, for the Education, Skills and Children's Services Department. And Mr. Donald MacLeod will speak to the report and answer any questions. Thanks, Donald.
Thank you very much, Chair. As a year-end report, we are providing here to the Chamber today a comprehensive summary in relation to all the priorities and outcomes documented in the plan. It's, as I say, a comprehensive report to members, and a great deal of detail is provided, and I don't intend to go through it paragraph by paragraph to the level of detail that's presented, but I will draw out some highlights, and then we'll be happy to take questions from members in relation to any issues or questions or points that you wish to highlight or raise. I would note in the first instance at 6 that the department has no strategic risks identified, so no comment is provided in relation to these. The substantive section of the report is really section 7 that provides narrative against each of our performance outcomes. Starting with attainment, which has already been reported to the committee for this reporting period, we saw significant improvement across our schools in terms of the broad general education for P1 to S3, and that's summarised here, but has, as I say, been previously reported to the committee, and we'll be reporting again on that to the September series once the attainment for 25-26 is confirmed in June. It's confirmed at the end of the month. So we're really pleased to see that the impact of our focus on attainment is really starting to bear fruit and have impact across our schools. And I would commend the work of our Quality Improvement Officer for Attainment and the work that she's done to support, address and challenge attainment across our schools. We've also seen improvements across a significant part of the senior phase attainment. That's already also been reported to committee last September, and we held for the first time a dedicated member seminar to explore school attainment in the senior phase to a greater detail. And we propose to do that again into the future. At 7:10, we've got information relating to early intervention, which is primarily the work of our children's services colleagues. And again, significant work has been undertaken during this reporting period, particularly in relation to inspection and scrutiny, where we've had effectively a footprint to some degree of care inspectorate and strategic inspector partners with that service for most of the last year in relation to the strategic inspection for children and compulsory supervision orders, the re-inspection of fostering, adoption and continuing care, which is reporting to this committee, and also participation in the group-based child sexual abuse and exploitation review that is currently ongoing. So that's been a significant part of the work of that service over that time. Also, some important specific priorities that the service has been undertaking in terms of meeting of the promise and expectations for that, and commending the work of Room 19 in the Nicholson Institute that's referenced in paragraph 712. And also importantly, and we aim to bring a full update report on this to the next committee series, the implementation of the Bairnshoes Pathfinder project, which is progressing at pace. And we expect to be able to have that facility open and functioning by mid to late autumn. And a summary on the progress of that at 7:14. We, as well, in terms of the priorities around schools as centres for lifelong learning and access to our school estate by the community, there's important information provided at 7:17, which gives an indication of just how much our schools are being used for community activity and community lets during the course of this year's reporting period. From 7:18 through to 7:33, there's a very significant detailed update from our sport and health colleagues around the range of work that they're undertaking, both in terms of sports facilities and in sports development. And there's a detailed account of the various activities that have been undertaken there. A service that's been going through some fairly significant change in terms of trying to grow a sustainable service and to increase its footprint in the community. And really pleasing to see some of the impact of that work coming through, including for the first time in a long time, a return of the annual sports festival, which was very well received in this reporting period. At 7:34, there is some reference at 7:34 onwards, information around childcare facilities, which we know continues to be a major priority for the Comhairle, and it provides some information there and work that's been undertaken during the course of this year's reporting period. But I would also want to highlight that since the end of the financial year, we have been continuing to work to explore and strengthen the provision of childcare, including working in a recent partnership with Clyde Gateway to explore how we can collaborate and bring in additional tests of change and new models of delivery to support growing both Comhairle and community-based childcare capacity. And we had an on-island visit last week, where we took colleagues from Clyde Gateway through our childcare estate, and we're exploring options for how we can grow and expand that further, not just in terms of direct childcare, but wider support for families as well around that. At 7:40, there's information around our investment and continuing support for the growth of Gaelic language and Gaelic medium education. Again, working to continue to at least sustain, if not grow, our Gaelic medium enrolment and our overall number of pupils in Gaelic medium education, but also considering our continuing delivery of Gaelic learner education as well. As members will be aware, the most significant activity in the reporting period that's been undertaken in relation to that has been the study that we commissioned in relation to secondary Gaelic education, and that is reporting to this committee today, and will be business of later. From 747 through to 753, there's a further comprehensive update from the library service, and again, there's an updated library service report to this committee that further extends that work. But really significant information around the growth and demand for the library service, particularly use of the details at 749 in relation to the number of users and the footfall that we are seeing in the library service, and a strong strategic plan in place to take that library service forward. And I would like to thank the members who have contributed to the Member Officer Working Group that is supporting the work of growing and strengthening our library service. In terms of reducing inequality and poverty, I would point out to members paragraph 755, the growth that we have seen in promotion and uptake of free school meals and clothing grants, and young people who are entitled and taking access to education maintenance allowance. It's areas where we continue to try and grow support available to families through that, these support services. We have also participated this year in a pilot expansion of free school meal entitlement for S1 to 3 pupils in partnership with Scottish Government. That pilot has ended, and we haven't had information as to whether it's going to continue with funding from the government, but we continue to look to try and find ways to support families who are finding the cost of school meals and the school day expensive. To some degree related to that, in terms of sustainable and inclusive council priority, I would point out at 762, one of the significant risks that we do face and has developed during the course of this reporting period is the significant challenge and burden of food inflation causing us significant challenges in the delivery of our free school meal service, where raw food costs have continued to increase and increase, and we know that everyone in the community is experiencing that, but we're not immune to that as a council service as well. And we have seen some significant cost inflation for the provision of ingredients to support the preparation of school meals. And into this financial year, we're undertaking work to try and see what we can do to address that through procurement and other delivery options to reduce our overall food costs. But it's an important service that we know we are statutorily required to provide, and the communities really value. In terms of the financial performance that would typically be included in this report in Section 8, that has not been able to be provided in time for the publication of the report, but it will be reported to Policy and Resources Committee in due course, and we will include it in full in our next outcome delivery report to this committee. Moving on to Section 9 in relation to workforce planning, these are areas that continue to provide opportunity and challenges for the service. At 9.2, I've included reference at the end of this reporting period, the agreement nationally on reduced class contact time, and have been grateful for the support of members in supporting the complexity of that national negotiation and trying to reach an outcome that recognises and supports some of the challenges that will be brought to the islands in terms of implementing reduced class contact time for teachers again. We are working on an implementation strategy for that, and we'll be reporting it to our local negotiating committee for teachers at its next meeting and to this committee in September. I would also highlight at 9.4 that the service continues to be significantly challenged by the system of allocation of probationer teachers. We continue to really struggle with receiving the allocation of teachers that we need in the system through the GTC teacher induction scheme allocation. We ask for the requirement of probationer teachers that we need each year. We very, very rarely get anything like what we need. And even when we do have these allocations, they sometimes fall through and don't come through to us into actually commencement of post. As such, we continue to lobby both as a council and collectively with other authorities around the improvement that's needed in that service. But it does challenge us significantly in our overall workforce planning. That's a key part of the teacher staffing puzzle every year and comes quite late to us. At 9, excuse me, sorry, my throat's just giving out. In paragraph 9.6 as well, we're highlighting that it's an important period of time for the service where we at the end of the reporting period and coming into the next one, that we will be looking for recruitment of heads of service for the service, and have recently completed the recruitment of a new principal educational psychologist. I've also highlighted at 9.7 that we do continue to face recruitment challenges and structural challenges in terms of staffing the Children's Services social work team. Significant work has gone into this in the reporting period to make sure that a service is maintained, and that has partly been supported through the commissioning of agency staff to maintain the service. So overall, it's been a busy year for the Education, Sport and Children's Services work of the committee and the Education and Children's Services Department, and happy to take questions from the floor from members on any of the content of the report.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Does anybody have any questions? Oh, I was right. Councillor Francis Murray.
Thanks very much. Thanks very much, Chair. Thank you, Mr. MacLeod, for that very detailed and very positive report. I think I've got 3 questions or 3 observations. The first one at 742, or 742 has Councillor McCormack has recently instructed me, it's not a point because it's not a mathematical number. I'm sorry to read about the suggestion that the JSPIT might be under threat, because it is such an important element in what young people learn about making a case and presenting a case and engaging with others, preparing for the world beyond school. And it has been such a successful competition over many years now, and I would hope there was, ways in which we can support that. 755 on the clothing grants. I think, I absolutely support some of the things being done to try and encourage more people to take up, receipt of these. But I think it's also important to note the very good work that all the schools, in my experience, do in providing, how should we put it, already loved school clothing. And, some of the schools, when you go in the foyer or a particular room, bears a resemblance to Murdo MacLean's with the amount of school clothing available on picking up from used good quality clothes from others. So I do think that does have an influence, perhaps, on the numbers. And the final one I wanted to note was, I think it's very much a case, and I'm glad to see it's seen as a national as well as a local issue, the increasing demand for ASN, because I think that is very much a national issue. It's not just in our authority, and the considerations about how this is managed and approached in terms of resources is a huge issue nationally. It certainly isn't just a local issue. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
I'll maybe just give some comment
Yep.
on these. My voice holds out. Absolutely, Councillor Murray, we share the concern in relation to JSPIT. Some of the funding partners that support JSPIT, a really important Gaelic debating competition that's undertaken nationally, but is run from and structured by the Comhairle. Some of the long-term funding partners or some of the new funding partners are no longer able to support that project. So we continue to work with the officers leading on JSPIT to try and make sure that there's a sustainable competition for this year. But at the moment, that is to some degree in doubt. It's a challenging one where the demand for sponsorship is decreasing at a time where the costs of delivery of JSPIT is increasing, because it involves taking travelling teams across the nation for heats and then to Edinburgh for a final, and all that transportation and accommodation is only increasing in cost at a time where sponsorship is being squeezed. But that is something that we will continue to try to get to sustain, because we recognise the value of that competition. In terms of clothing grants, I would absolutely acknowledge what Councillor Murray has pointed out. All our schools have what's usually called a pre-loved clothing provision, where at no cost families are able to take advantage of not just formal school uniform, but other supplementary clothing, such as polo shirts, trousers, skirts that are not branded school uniform, are very often available, and every school has an area where pre-loved uniform is available. And that's another way of reducing the costs of the school day for families, should I say. And cost of the school day is something that all our schools work on, not just in terms of clothing grants, but other costs, particularly incidental costs that can accrue for families across the school day. And the final point from Councillor Murray in relation to ASN, it's something that we very acutely feel, and there's work being undertaken nationally through the Association of Directors of Education in Scotland as well in relation to the growth in identification and the requirements of meeting needs across ASN, which we sit in a typical margin of, but all authorities are concerned around the sustainability of provision for additional support needs and meeting our statutory duties in terms of that. But it's work that we continue to undertake locally and collectively.
Thanks, Don. Okay, so Councillor Susan Thompson, sorry. Susan Morrison. Morrison's in my head today. I don't know.
Thanks for the report. It's about the undertaking a major review of childcare services at 739. Will school transport be in scope for this review?
Just get a reference. School transport, it's not likely to form a major part of that review because it's already tied into contracted services that are in place long term. We have considered, and what I referenced in terms of the work that we were looking at in partnership with Clyde Gateway, for instance, and looking at the totality of support around childcare. Transportation has been recognised as a significant part of that, as has housing and availability of housing. So these are the other priorities around that. But transport, the council provided contracted transport. It's very difficult for us to adjust and to move within the period of contract, but we are looking to find ways of supporting more flexible transport solutions to support childcare. And one of the things that we have been considering is around the field work that we've done, suggesting that some of the solutions are where people have been looking for moving children towards a resource, that it may be more sustainable to move the resource to where the children are. And that's part of what we have to explore in that review.
And that home to school and school to home is not necessarily the right provision for many families who use formal and informal childcare arrangements. Families in US and in other rural wards have long been citing transport as a real barrier to accessing childcare, and we can provide the best childcare in the world, but if people aren't able to access it, there's really no point in doing it. I understand the challenges, but we'll always be in this cycle of we have contracted services and we're doing other stuff alongside that. I think these two things need to be considered in the round: provision of childcare and how children get to that childcare.
I take Councillor Thompson's point in that, and absolutely we will make sure that that is considered in the review as far as it can be in terms of existing council policy and contracts, but also looking at other solutions for it. As I mentioned, transport has been recognised as a significant factor in relation to childcare, and we will explore what's within our gift to be able to influence and improve that.
Thanks for that. Just one other point, if I may, about meals. Is the standard of school meals consistent across all of the council schools? The Parent Council at Linneclet have raised their concerns for quite some time now about the quality, cost and provision of healthy options. When I compare what is available to us here with what children get at Linneclet, it's really, really stark. I understand there are challenges round about cost and rising costs, but given that there are no other options for children who are at Linneclet who can't go somewhere else for their lunch, they have to have lunch in school. I would urge you to have at what we're actually providing for our children to eat in that school.
I take the point that Councillor Thompson is making there. First of all Western Isles schools operate a common core menu, and in some situations that is supplemented by other choices too. But there is a common core menu that is deemed and assessed to be nutritionally compliant with the statutory requirements for school meal nutrition. The issues that are being referenced in relation to the delivery of the service in Linneclet are not in relation to costs or the costs of school meals. It's ultimately been in relation to being able to sustain a staff cohort in the service to make the provision of the meals that are required. And that is something that we continue to work on. We've undertaken a survey within that school and are working through the results of that at the moment to identify the specific issues that people have been experiencing and to address these in that school. But that's a specific service delivery issue. It's not to do with the menu choices or the nutrition or the cost of delivery for that service. It's purely an issue of staffing and delivery, and we're undertaking work to try and address that, and are aware of the representations that we've received from parents and the responses to the survey that's recently been issued.
Do you keep me informed about what the outcome of that is?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks. Gordon, did you want to come in? Yeah. Councillor Gordon Murray.
I'm not a member of your committee.
Doesn't matter.
Chair, so
Okay. No, just carry on. Just carry on. We do it in order. We don't have any of that.
Thanks very much.
Whoever's next.
Thanks a lot, Mr MacLeod, for that excellent report. Very informative, and for the update on the childcare and the obvious issues with the probation system as well, which we've been involved in with that. But I just wanted to ask, in paragraph 7.3, it talks about numeracy. First line, 81% of learners across P1, P4 and P7 combined achieved the expected level. So I just wanted to ask, what was the comparison with the national average and other rural and island authorities on that particular?
I would have to reference back to the report that we took to the committee in September, Councillor Murray, so I don't have the comparative figures immediately to hand here, but we know that they compared favourably and were a significant increase on what we had attained in the previous years. But I'll happily provide that from the reference from the report that came in September. And again, we'll be providing that again this September with further context. But I can provide that response to you separately. So just to clarify, it was comparison with national statistics and with equivalent island authorities.
Yeah. And maybe our own, the direction of travel.
Yes.
With our own data as well. That would be very helpful. Thanks.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks very much.
Councillor Callum MacLean.
Thanks, Chair. Can I just ask a question, first of all, as regarding 7.5? Some of us, me in particular, are a bit concerned about what added responsibilities, or in other words, added titles, I should say, should go on to head teachers. But there's a title there called Virtual HT. CECYP, that's in 7.5. Can I ask, is this a person or is it a virtual? I'm a bit confused about whether I'm a bit confused about the titles that are going into HT's head teacher. I thought head teachers were head teachers, but I'm afraid modern language is saying that there actually is differences in head teachers. But 7.5, it's virtual HT.
Yes, happy to explain that, Councillor MacLean. The Comhairle receives funding as part of the Attainment Scotland Fund annually to support care experienced children and young people. So that's the CECYP. It should be somewhere else in the report, the full definition, although it's bracketed here. So care experienced children and young people. So that is anyone who's currently looked after or has at any point in their life up to date been looked after. And in the care of others. So any care experienced children and young people, there's additional responsibilities that we hold, and we receive additional funding to make sure that their educational outcomes are improving. The funding had previously been used to appoint a care experienced officer who wasn't an education qualified person. And that worked very well for the first number of years of the funding in terms of supporting the wider participation and engagement and provision of access to education, improving attendance and so on for care experienced children and young people. But as that post became vacant, the education staff considered that we now need to focus much more tightly on this very specific education outcomes for the care experienced children and young people cohort, of which at any given time there can be between 40 and 50 pupils. The term virtual head teacher is a national term that relates to, it is a person, it's not a virtual person, it is an actual person who takes responsibility for that cohort of 40 to 50 pupils. It's got the title virtual because they are not specifically associated to one individual school. The care experience cohort of pupils are Western Isles wide, and they straddle primary and secondary education. So nationally, there's been a term established of a virtual head teacher for care experienced children and young people. Not all authorities have one, but several authorities now do. And we've been exploring that model of having a dedicated senior leader that is responsible for making sure that the educational outcomes are fulfilled for our most vulnerable children and young people. So we have proposed that as the post became vacant, that we use the funding that we receive externally for this to establish the role of a virtual head teacher to be responsible for that cohort. It is ultimately a shared responsibility because these pupils remain on the role of their own school and under the responsibility of the head that's there. But this person would have the responsibility for coordinating that across the whole of, the whole of the Western Isles and to work with the schools there. So it is a real person, but operating in a virtual environment in the sense of that they do not have a school of their own. They are responsible for the education of our vulnerable pupils across our school estate. So I hope that kind of answers it, Councillor McLean.
Yes, terminology again.
It's a terminology,
Yeah.
yes.
Second question is regarding 9.5. That's to do with the reviews relation to workforce strategy. It's coming to a conclusion at 26, 27. Oh, I agree. This is in process. I take it.
It is indeed,
It is
Councillor McLean, yes.
Just going to, I have had a couple of representations from some in my ward that have been visiting schools, especially, and they've seen a downturn or a downward trend in the cleaning that's going on in the schools. And maybe I should speak to Neil MacLeod later on about that. Have we started reducing cleaning staff in schools? Because these people have been coming to me and saying they've noticed a difference. I don't know if anybody else has had these representations, but I've certainly had it.
Absolutely, Councillor McLean. There's been proposals to reduce cleaning budgets within the last 2 years of a budget proposals that have been agreed by the Chamber, and we have had to implement some of these savings. In terms of the implementation of the second year of these savings that were agreed in the 25 and 26 budgets, the only way that we can meet that is by reducing the overall footprint of cleaning available. Some of that cleaning has some of the cleaning adjustments have already started to happen through post turnover, but the proposals at 9.5 relate to a strategic review of the full cleaning estate and the requirements of how we structure that in relation to managing the budget that we've been allocated, which has been reduced through budget setting. So ultimately, yes, there will be some reduction in cleaning in schools.
Okay, thanks, Carl. Oh, so you want to get in?
Yeah, it's just that I'm saying that if we're reducing the budgets, we're reducing the personnel within the school, we obviously will reduce the standards. That's what I'm saying, and that's not to be commended.
Okay, thanks, Carl. Thanks. Yeah. So if there are no other questions, are there any other questions? Nope. So do members agree to note the report? Okay, thanks. I'll move on to item 4, and that's a review of mothballed school provision 2026-27. The report at item 4 provides an update in relation to mothballed educational provision at Tulster School, Brezzaclit School, Park School and Burnham School, and to review the status of each as is required annually. Ms. Kathleen MacLeod and Ms. Patricia MacLeod, executive head teachers, will speak to the report and answer any questions. Who wants to speak?
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of the report is to provide an update in relation to the 4 mothballed provisions at Tulster, Brezzaclit, Park and Burnham schools. Tulster School and Burnham School. Tulster School has been mothballed since August 2019, followed by Burnham School in August 2021. The English medium class at School Brezzaclit or Brezzaclit School has been mothballed since August 2020, and Park School, the Gaelic medium, provision there has been mothballed since also August 2020. In compliance with the School Consultation Scotland Act 2010, the decision to mothball all or part of a provision should be subject to review annually. As you're aware, work is currently underway to progress the statutory closure of Tulster and Burnham In March, the options appraisal was held in both communities, and this was reported to the committee in March 26. We are now preparing the next stage of the statutory pre-consultation stage. Due to the statutory timescales required to be followed, this stage cannot commence until August 26. In the English medium provision at School of the Escalage and the Gaelic medium provision at Park School have both been mothballed. Next session, there'll be 25 pupils in the Gaelic medium class in School of the Escalage, and it's noted that the provision in the Scottish Languages Act 25 may require the Comhairle moving to statutory closure of the English medium provision. The overall role in Park School has fallen by 50% during the 25-26 academic year, and next session it's projected that 3 pupils will be on the roll. There's a duty upon the Comhairle to engage with parents and the community during 26-27 to consider their views about the future of the school. There have been no inquiries in relation to enrolments in any of the above schools for August 26. So the report recommends to continue to mothball education provision at Tolsta School for the academic year 26-27 whilst the statutory closure consultation that is underway is concluded. To continue to mothball the English medium provision at the Escalate School for the academic year 26-27 and explore the viability of moving to a formal statutory closure of this part of the provision. Continue to mothball the Gaelic medium provision at Park School for the academic year 26-27 and explore viability of moving to the formal statutory closure of this part of the provision. And finally, to continue to mothball the education provision at Berna School for the academic year 26-27 whilst the statutory closure consultation that is underway is concluded. Thank you. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Kathleen. Thanks. I'll just bring in Ranulph Fraser online. Councillor Ranulph Fraser.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Kathleen, for that report. I note that within the recommendations at paragraph B, the Department in the future might look into exploring the viability of moving to formal statutory closure of the English medium provision at the Essex School. Now, the community in which this school serves is vibrant, close-knit, and consists of a high population of young families. I'm of the view that the Department should expend every avenue possible before such a decision is made, and therefore would the Director be amenable in formally sounding interest for English medium provision within the catchment area, which now includes Great Bernera, so as to provide a comprehensive finding as to the needs of this provision.
I'll just bring the director in, or the chief officer, and I keep using director here. Someone got their mic. That's it. You're on.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fraser. We appreciate that this is a complex issue for the community of Briescott School. We're required today to consider the continued mothballing of the English medium class due to there being no enrolment requests into that provision at the moment. And it had always been the view that we wouldn't be considering any statutory closure of a part provision whilst there was obviously strong continuing demand for the other part of the provision, because it's effectively reviewing a single class within an overall provision. However, alternative advice has been presented to the Comhairle that we would have to consider that as classifying it as a separate element of provision and therefore having to consider statutory closure now. Because the provision has been mothballed, we would be required to either satisfy that it can be open, and I take the point that Councillor Fraser is raising there, and we would be doing that as a matter of course to move the situation on. But we may also be presented with a requirement to have to initiate the statutory consultation process. Now, the statutory consultation process, as we know, and have recently been debating in the Chamber for Tolsta School and Bernera School, it goes through many phases, the first of which would be options appraisal. And that options appraisal would undertake the very work that Councillor Fraser describes, and should that identify a cohort that would sustain the re-establishment of the English medium provision at Briasket School, it would be a matter of course that this would be taken back to the Chamber to consider the re-establishment of that provision. So it could be, and yes, we can undertake that in answer to Councillor Fraser's question, but it may also be superseded by an options appraisal, part of the statutory consultation that we'd be required to undertake. So either way, the community will have the opportunity to be consulted and to identify a cohort for English medium provision for that school.
Okay, Ronald.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And while I have the floor, if you allow me, Chair, to express mine and the community's thanks to Donald, Evelyn and all those in the Education Department currently working on the celebrations to commemorate the 40th anniversary of Gaelic medium education at Briasket School. I feel I have to say that the community in which I represent is immensely proud of Briasket School's position within the realm of Gaelic medium education, both locally and nationally, and on behalf of everyone, we look forward to events later this summer. So thank you for that, Chair. And Donald.
Thanks, Ronald. Thanks. So are there any other questions anyone has? Councillor Donald Crichton.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm not a member of your committee. In the report, recommendation D says Tolsta when it should say Bernera School, I think.
Oh yeah, we had that mistake before. Okay.
And just if the Chief Officer can outline exactly what form the consultation will take, an option appraisal, and what follows that. Will there be meetings in the community to discuss with?
John A, can you switch off your mic, please? I'll get you next. Right, thanks.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Sorry, apologies for there's a typographical error in recommendation D, which should say Bernera School, not Tolsta School. That's already addressed at recommendation A. It's been corrected on the SharePoint version of the report, so it was picked up
just
prior to that, but the paper copies still have the error. In terms of the consultation, that's defined in statute under the requirements of the 2010 School Consultation Act, and as Tolsta School and, for that matter, Bernera School are classified as rural schools, we have to undertake an additional tier of consultation. So the stage that process is at the moment is there have been options appraisal meetings held in the communities for Tolsta and for Bernera, and these meetings have gathered information in relation to what the views of the community are and what options there would be to either avert closure or to explore other use for the school buildings. These were reported to a previous sitting of this committee, and that now moves to the pre-consultation stage that's defined in the Act in terms of rural schools, and then that'll involve sort of further meetings with the communities to report back on the options appraisals and to consider any further options there are for the schools. And then it'll move into the formal consultation stage, and there are statutory timescales around each of these, which is why we're not able to undertake that this side of the summer, because some of these consultation periods are defined as requiring 30 clear term time days, where there's the consultation is open for a specifically defined legislative period. So we've done the options appraisal. We move then to the consultation phase, which is where we're at the moment, and then we move into the formal consultation phase, and there are community meetings and opportunities for all members of the community to contribute to decision making and to receive information throughout that process. Along the way as well, and it'll be developed in the pre-consultation stage, there's a full proposal document that'll be produced to give the information to the community around the history of the situation and how it's proposed to be resolved, to make sure the community is fully informed of what the exact proposals actually are. And that will also document what came through the outcome of the options appraisal meetings that have already been held. And that answers that.
Thank you, Mr. MacLeod. Can you say how many have participated in the process to date?
I would have to check back on the reports that went to, I think it was the March committee. My colleagues might remind me, it was to the March committee. So the reports are available in the SharePoint folder for the March committee that detail the participation in the options appraisals. And I would have to double check. I don't have the figures in front of me today, but they are available to members on SharePoint. There was an options appraisals report for each of these two meetings that were presented in March and are in the March committee folder.
Okay, thanks, Donald. John A. McKeever.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not a member of your committee, It's just regarding Tosta School, and Donald's more or less answered my concerns. It's all to do with process, but it's 2019 that the school has been closed, and there is community interest, but they can't do anything until we come to a decision to close the school permanently. It's very frustrating for the community. I understand there has been no requests for the school to reopen, and is there any way we can actually speed up the process? Because it's taken 7-8 years.
I appreciate that it's taken a considerable amount of time to get to this point. Councillor McKeever is correct in that, absolutely. But we are trying to progress this as fast as we possibly can now that we've had substantive decisions of previous sittings of this committee to move through the statutory consultation process. We know that there is community interest in the building in Tulsta, and as the report recognises, there's a right to occupy agreement in place for part of that estate. But whilst we would like to try and progress this as fast as we can't go beyond the timescales that are set out in statute in the 2010 Act that we are required to follow. And we will be working through that post-summer as fast as we possibly can, in recognition that there is a wish for the community to make use of that building. But we do also have to acknowledge in the options appraisal there was some interest in the use of the school for the purposes of education. So we have to capture all of that and give the total views of the community. So I appreciate there's a real wish to move that on, and we will be working as fast as we can within the timeframes of the Act.
Councillor Carl McLean.
Yeah, thanks. I agree entirely with what Councillor McKeever says there regarding the time scale. I reckon this 7 to 8 years of consultation. Is that actually in statute? Is the time limit in statute? Because the state of Tulsta School, I would say that the state, I don't know if there is such as it is presently, cannot be the same as it was in 2019. Or have the council got wonders and may be able to keep that school the way it would be, as pristine condition that it was in 2019. But you're handing over a building that, to my mind, maybe Mr. McKeever, he passes it more often than I do, is starting to look quite dilapidated. And if we're talking about time limits like this, and I think that we as a council, there is other buildings, and it's not coming up today, which are going into disrepair simply because of the time limit that we're doing to get to actually dispose of them. Is that actually in that you've got to take 7 years when a school closes to actually, and it's, am I saying that it's still in consultation? Does that what A says here? Provincial Resources School continue to mothball it until the statutory closure consultation that is underway is concluded. When on earth is it going to conclude in? 2029, 2040?
To answer the question, the consultation has not been running for 7 years. The consultation was agreed, I think, 2 committees back, or possibly 3 committees back towards the end of 2025. The period of time in between, when a school is mothballed, we have a duty to leave it mothballed for a number of years to consider whether a sustainable role is identified over that period of time. In addition, we did face delays around this in terms of impact of the pandemic within that time and the capacity of officers to take that work forward, and to a much lesser degree the impact of the cyber attack in 2023 too. But ultimately that's partly been a combination of the requirement to leave the school in a mothballed position until such time as we determine that there isn't a role available, and there have been service delays in moving to consultation. But the consultation in and of itself that was agreed to commence in late 2025 is following the statutory timescales. The times in terms of the latter part of your question, that will require still 2 committee decisions. So the earliest we will be able to do that would be November 2026, and that's the timescale that we're working to. So I'm sure, Councillor McLean, it won't be 2040. We've been aiming for at least late 2026, and certainly no later than the March series 2027. But that's to meet the requirements of the consultation periods that are set out, so that there are mechanisms there to protect rural schools that do not lead to premature closure.
I despair, Chair.
Okay, thanks. Yes, I know it takes a long time. It does. Right, okay, so if there are no any other questions? Oh, Councillor Angus Morrison.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not a member of your committee. My question in relation to Park School, obviously a school in our ward, I feel it's quite sad when you see the school roll diminishing to 50%. It's actually more than 50% because not that long ago there was 9 pupils in Park School. My question really is, well, I've got 2 questions. One is, how many Gaelic medium pupils are going from Park to Scunaloch at this current time? And the other question I have is, do we know why parents are taking their children out of Park School and taking them to other schools? And I'm aware of one family have taken 2 children to City Scott School in Tarbert from Park School. I find that quite strange and quite alarming when the school roll is going down. I think it's very sad when we see the rural areas and we're discussing closure of schools, possible closure of schools and mothballing of schools. I think we should do everything we can to try and encourage children to stay in the rural communities if we can. Regarding 6.10, I think there will be new pupils coming to Park School next year. My understanding is I know of one family who's moving into the area, who's possibly got 2 children who will be hopefully going to Park School. But that's to be confirmed, obviously. And there's housing developments taking place in Park at the moment where they're hoping to get young families into the area to boost the school numbers. And finally, the point was to do with the duty on the Comhairle to engage with parents and the community duty 26-27 to consider the views about the future of the school. Both Councillor McKenzie and I are meeting with the Community Council in Park tonight, and this is a question that's going to come up. Are there any plans to have discussions and community discussions with parents and the community in relation to Park School?
I'll maybe turn to colleagues operationally, first of all, who may be able to answer the question in relation to the number of pupils who are resident within the Park catchment but attending Scunaloch, and then I'll come on to the other questions from Councillor Morrison.
Who's got a light on? That's
My
it.
own.
You're in,
Yeah.
Tricia.
Hello, there's no Gaelic medium pupils just now going to Scunaloch at the moment from Park. I don't think so. No.
Okay.
At the moment, no. There was in the past, but not just now.
Okay, and in terms of the second part of Councillor Morrison's questions, I can't discuss the circumstances of individual families in a public forum, but ultimately parental choice is available to all families as to the school that they wish to enrol their children into. We, and it's legally defined, a designated catchment area for every community to a specific school, and that's applicable to both Gaelic medium and English medium education, or Gaelic learner education. But parents have a right as well to place their children in any school they wish to. And if that school has capacity, we are duty bound to accept that placing request. And there are only very small and narrow defined grounds for where a parental placing request can be refused. So ultimately, parental choice is at the fore of which schools parents wish to send their children to. And we understand, and we have seen it in other communities where the role of a school gets very low. Sometimes decisions are made about socialisation and other factors, curriculum delivery, that can influence parents' decision making. In terms of the last part of the question, absolutely, and there is the commitment within the report to engage with the school community and the community council in Park to consider collectively their views on taking the school forward. And if this decision is ratified today, we will be moving forward with that engagement with the community, and we'd be happy to have officers attend the community council, and we would be engaging with the parent council regardless as well. Appreciative that that's become quite a small organisation, and to some degree the community council might be the greater representative group of the whole district now, but absolutely we'd be committing to that.
Thank you for that. So do we have a timeline roughly for these meetings? And the other point I would to add in the area forums as well, if could include the area forums into any discussion in the communities, because we've got 3 very active area forums in the Lochs area now, and one's in Park. And sometimes we find a greater input at the area forums than we do at the community councils.
Yes, Chair, I'm happy to confirm that we would meet with area forums as well. I don't have a specific timetable for that yet because we have to approve the decision today and then schedule that into, we would prefer to be able to attend already existing established meetings of these organisations rather than have to call specific ones for this purpose. So we'd have to liaise with Councillor Morrison to establish what dates are already in the calendar for these organisations, and we can attend meetings on invitation.
Okay. Councillor Norman MacDonald online.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks, Chief Officer, for all the report on this. I was wondering if I heard correctly that school roll, I think maybe for primary, I'm not sure it was primary or secondary, has fallen below, was it 2,000 or 3,000 for the first time in 200 years or 150 years. So we're obviously suffering from depopulation and a massive change in the demographic of our population, particularly with school kids, and our aging population is testament to that. Do we have indicators? Obviously, we'll know where folk are with Scolari, etc., going forward. Do we have indicators of areas where school rolls will be reached a critical stage? And, you know, do we actively keep an eye on where we are with the populations that we have in the smaller school areas, so that we can identify where issues will be coming up? You know, the size of a school like Tolsta having to close, that in itself is indicative of where we are with population decline. Are we keeping a weather eye on everywhere else as well, so that we can predict where these issues are going to arise and where future school closures may be on the horizon?
Yeah, I have to answer that, Chair. Ultimately, yes, we are, and Councillor MacDonald is right to identify that we have seen some fairly significant school age population decline across the Western Isles, and is indicative of our wider strategic concerns around depopulation, and particularly depopulation of our working age population and their families. In the period since just pre-COVID 2020 to date, there's been an approximately, and it is approximately 10% decline in the total roll across Western Isles schools. We have gone from about 3,300 pupils just prior to COVID. We mentioned just about everything pre and post pandemic, but that's a roughly 5-year period, from 3,300 to just under 3,000 and currently. And that is, over a short period of time, a significant decline in the population. That is across a lot of our different communities. Not every community. In some communities, school rolls have grown. In other communities, they have fallen. And interestingly, one of the preconceptions we see around this is that there's a sense that the population movement is from rural to more urban, and particularly our urban centres in Ballyvanich and in Stornoway, but that's not strictly the case. A significant part of that roll decline has been in Stornoway Primary. So it's not just a rural problem alone, it's a whole Western Isles problem. We do keep our weather eye as close as we can with the information we have available about school enrolment. We obviously have relatively reliable information for 2 years, hence through our Scolari provisions, and we have some data come through from NHS in relation to births and health visitor information. But that can be an inexact science as well, because coming back to the rights parents have to place their children in any school they wish to, we have a fairly significant proportion of placing requests every year. So even though we know where children are resident in a particular area, that does not necessarily mean that's where they choose to go to school when they reach school age. There are other factors such as where the parents work, where there may be childcare, that post-school, that influence parents' decisions on the specific school they wish to enrol. So they're indicative and they are useful, and we keep a close eye on them, but they're not absolute in terms of predicting exactly the roles that we will see in our schools. We also have a population of home educating families that choose not to enter into statutory council-operated education. So these are all factors that can influence that overall decision. And if we take the context of the report today, where we've got a school like Park with a roll of 3 pupils at the moment, any one single decision can influence the sustainability of a school. And we do watch that very, very closely and are monitoring all our school rolls annually. We begin, well, the monitoring is continuous, but we specifically monitor very closely between February and August, when the school enrolments open each year in late January, February, through to the commencement of the next year in August. And that's the particular time where we see a lot of movement, where parents are making decisions around placings, where there's transitions from school to school, and there's other movement. So we do monitor it very closely.
Yeah, thanks for that, Chief Officer. I think you touched upon childcare there. And I think every single one of us is aware of the importance of childcare going forward and sustaining our populations and attracting people to these islands. And I know you've taken a lot of time out to address the issues with childcare. I'm grateful for the work that's been done with that. But I think it's incumbent upon all of us to ensure that childcare is at the forefront of our thinking going forward and across several committees, to ensure that we sustain the populations that we've got, because childcare is becoming the issue that possibly drives people away. So we need to work hard to ensure that. And again, I'll reiterate, I'm grateful for the work that's been done with that. So thanks again, Chief Officer.
Okay, thanks, Ari. Thanks. Right. So if there's no other questions, do members agree to approve the recommendation at 3.1? Okay, thanks, Kathleen. Thanks. Cheers. Right, so we'll move on to item 5, which is Gaelic schools. So Gaelic Secondary School feasibility study. This report details the stage 1 feasibility study undertaken to consider the establishment of a dedicated Gaelic secondary provision in the Western Isles and to consider next steps. Mr. Donald MacLeod will speak to the report and answer any questions. Thanks, Donald.
I apologise that we're not able to speak in Gaelic today about the report about Gaelic education, but other factors determine that. This is a very important report, in some degrees a milestone report in terms of Gaelic medium education and Gaelic education in a wider sense across the Western Isles. Coming at a particularly important time, as Councillor Fraser mentioned earlier, where we mark 40 years of Gaelic medium education being established in 1986 in Briescott School, and also to some degree marking 10 years of Eascol, which was also founded on principles of widening access to Gaelic, although it's done much more since as well. So as members and the Chamber are aware, we have received external funding to commission a study into the establishment of Gaelic secondary education, dedicated Gaelic secondary education within the Western Isles. And this is partly in satisfaction of commitments that were made within the Comhairle's Gaelic plan, where there is a documented commitment to explore the demand for this kind of provision. So in response to that, funding was received, and just through the course of 2025, the summer of 2025, we agreed a scope with the appointed researchers that were identified and appointed through Edinburgh University to undertake this detailed study. The scope that was agreed is identified in paragraph 5.6 in the background of the report. That is what was set out and what we were intending to achieve. This was a large exercise that involved speaking to a significant amount of people, exploring a lot of research, that's existing research, not just within the realm of Gaelic education, but also other multilingual communities and how they address provision of education in their communities. At 6.1, it sets out the sections of the report as determined, which are primarily in response to the areas that were identified in the scoping. And the report itself is included in appendix. It is a significant report that runs to nearly 200 pages in total, and it's difficult to distill that down and summarise it in the time that we have available today. And it was in reflection of that we held last month a dedicated seminar for elected members to meet with the research team and to explore the report itself in more detail and to consider early views about the way ahead in terms of developing this policy further. To consider the overall findings of the report and to distill that down, like I say, is not easy, but probably taking together some of the high-level messages that come through, ultimately being that whilst there's a considerable amount of good work, and I would wish to recognise in the Chamber today the work of our schools, our secondary schools at the moment around Gaelic medium education and the good work that does go on, it is not meeting the growing aspirations and expectations of our communities. Through the adoption of our Gaelic First policy and the significant growth that has already been reported to committee over the years in Gaelic medium education in the primary phase, we're now about 6-7 years into that. We're starting to see that growth in primary education reach our secondary schools, and that is increasing demand and expectation, as is the Scottish Languages Act and areas of linguistic significance, as rightly so, are increasing the prominence and expectations around Gaelic. And probably very importantly, as well, I would highlight, and it ties in with some of our earlier conversations, the importance to our economy, our culture, our history, to maintaining and strengthening our education pathways through Gaelic. The report doesn't focus alone on Gaelic medium education. It also recognises the role of Gaelic learner education, because every single child in the Western Isles learns Gaelic. So there's obviously the stream of Gaelic medium education, which is initially an immersive stream and then a bilingual stream. But also all children in Gaelic learner classes learn Gaelic from primary one. So the reason that becomes pertinent and important in terms of the research is, as the research identifies, we really start to see attrition in that progression as they move up through secondary school, where both effectively fluent speakers that have been through a Gaelic medium provision and Gaelic learners that have been through a 7-year Gaelic learner provision gradually dwindle away through the secondary phases of education. And that results in a very low number, as has been previously discussed and reported in this committee, a very low number taking that to a level of certification, whether that's at National 5, higher or advanced higher. There are also wider dissatisfactions around the general ethos and culture of Gaelic within our secondary school estates, which are deemed and found in the report to be primarily English-led. So whilst the report very robustly identifies that there is a need for change, it recognises that the status quo is not an acceptable standard for Gaelic, be that learner or fluent. There is clearly a strength of differing views around what the policy for the Comhairle should be in terms of addressing that and taking it forward into the future. The research explored ideas of a fully dedicated standalone provision. It explored the idea of creating a provision away from existing schools, but governed by an existing school. It explored on-site, shared campus type provision. It explored the idea of more of a, similarly to what we've had in primary schools, a Gaelic provision within the school and effectively under the same school governance. So the various scenarios of how that could be taken forward. And it's fair to say that there were a broad spectrum of views in relation to that varied across ages, in terms of parents and pupils and staff. It varied geographically across our communities. And one of the things that came through, I think, very strongly was around the need for this policy that we're developing in terms of Gaelic secondary education, that it has to be a solution for all of the Western Isles. There were quite significant concerns highlighted around ideas that we may be considering creating a single school in a single island community, whilst not addressing the issues that have been identified through the rest of the report. And maybe there's a sense that when we were just exploring this in the earlier stages, we didn't have the information that the report now provides us about the issues across all our island communities in relation to Gaelic delivery. The report findings also provides us with the opportunity to explore beyond conventional thinking in this as well, and may not be about building one new school in one location. There is recognition that Gaelic doesn't sit as a language alone. It's a functioning part of our community that cuts across particularly the economy, but also music, culture, history, and other aspects of island life. And the provision of education may require a more innovative and diverse solution than just to build an S1 to 6 education provision. It may involve immersive language learning. It may involve initial teacher education. It may involve community facilities or community culture and musical provision within any kind of new centre. It also opens the doors around use of technology and connectivity to make sure that we are making the most of the digital resources that we have, and the Pathfinder work and the proof of concept work that eSchool has shown can deliver very good outcomes for qualifications across the secondary phases. So the report, probably in summary, identifies we definitely have a problem. We definitely have to do something different around the delivery of secondary education, but it also identifies that there is no single clear steer across our communities around what the strength of feeling is around individual approaches to addressing this. As such, the recommendations of the report today, sitting alongside the report that's in appendix, is twofold. Ultimately, first of all, that we obviously note the findings of the report, but twofold in terms of moving this on. Firstly, one of the threads that came through in the consultations was sometimes not a full understanding of what the various different options would actually mean in real terms. If we were to explore a dedicated standalone provision, what would that actually mean in real terms? If it was going to be a shared campus site, what would that actually mean in real terms? And it ended up with the survey being very high level, and there's a real wish for people to understand more of the actual operational mechanics of what these would be. So the recommendation proposes that we develop a delivery plan as a phase 2 that maps out what these different options would be in much more detail, putting more meat on the bones of these proposals. And secondly, it came through very strongly, and since the publication of the report has come through even more strongly, a real wish across our communities in the Western Isles for more dialogue about this. I recently attended the Nicholson Institute Parent Council, and I've had representation from other parent councils as well about a really strong desire to have more consultation and more discussion around the way ahead. So in the interest of making sure that the Chamber in future is fully informed, the proposals and the recommendations are to develop that delivery plan and to flesh out these proposals in more detail to allow people to understand them fully, and to then undertake that stage 2 consultation about that delivery plan to see if we can gather a stronger consensus around the way ahead to inform the Chamber on the policy for the future. But regardless of that, it's very clear as well that the solutions that we develop are going to have to address the needs of secondary education from the Butt to Barra in all our communities and across all our schools. And I think the road ahead should help us try to address that. So I'm happy to take questions on the report being presented today and or the findings in the report in appendix, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Donald. So,
Thanks, Chair.
Yeah.
Just a heads up, I've had very little sleep, so I don't know if I can string together sentences right now. Something that sort of just dovetails quite nicely into the previous discussion we had about depopulation. In the report, it tends to, well, it identifies 2 possible areas, both Stornoway and Uist, for, you know where I'm going with this, as possible sites. It strikes me we've been sort of offered an opportunity here to maybe, you know, address the depopulation issue in Uist if the physical school was put there, as well as you said, it also needs to, the policy needs to sort of cover all the islands. And again, Uist being in the middle of the chain, sorry, Stornoway, but you're on one end. Trust me, I've just travelled all the way up here. It is a bit of a pain to get here. So if there was going to be, you know, one central hub for secondary education, but, you know, I know it doesn't necessarily say this, but then satellites covering the north and the south, it would make sense to have it in the middle. So, you know, we're tackling, you know, we're potential multiple birds here with one stone. I just wanted to sort of stress that.
Thank you, Councillor McLean. And these are some of the things that we need to wrestle with what is recommended at 3.1b in terms of putting more meat on the bones of that, and whether establishment of a single individual school is actually the right way ahead. There were strong representations across Uist and Barra, for instance, about serious concerns of, and there'll be plenty living memory of this, and you'll have maybe picked it up in the report, about a return to boarding and having to travel inter-island to access your education. And there's a real strong will not to have that. There is also recognition that although as a massive population, the numbers are less across Uist and Barra, the actual percentage of Gaelic medium education and Gaelic speaking is higher in Uist and Barra than it is in Lewis and Harris. So that may be a rationale to consider location of a provision in Uist. However, I think maybe there's a higher level consideration here about that we have to develop a solution across all 4 school communities, and that may have to be something that's innovative and different, may not necessarily be tied to a single building, but whatever it does, it has to foster a strong ethos of Gaelic and try to deliver on better outcomes in qualifications and pathways from school into employment and further study within the context of Gaelic. That's a real economic imperative for us. It absolutely ties to population retention and identification of significant needs of workforce, the Comhairle's own workforce, but the workforce within the community as well. And in the context of public service reform and being more flexible and dynamic organisations, there may be other solutions that we can explore as part of that, as well as putting the meat and the bones of the ideas that have already been presented. But I suppose in conclusion, every community has made an ask through this study to say we want to improve our access to Gaelic education in our secondary schools. So we have to find a solution that works for all 4 school communities.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Ray Mackenzie.
Thanks, Chair. I was in this chamber 40 years ago when Gaelic medium education was introduced. I suppose I'm the only person in here that was, and very much supported it at the time. And of course, I support this too, and I congratulate the production of this report. 187 pages of it. At the point that Mr. McLean mentioned there, Councillor McLean, if you have a town of 20 to 30,000 people, it's relatively easy to have one building. But we're not in that position, so that is a major problem, and I appreciate that, how that's going to be overcome. I take it that the follow-up from this that you've mentioned, how the next steps and going forward into the future, it can't really be covered in a short space on a education committee agenda. And I think really, that I'm sorry I missed the seminar. I wasn't able to be there. But I think that's the type of thing. It's going to need probably half a dozen seminars or more. It certainly can't be covered in one item on the agenda in this committee. So a tremendous amount of work has been done so far, and I hope that we can look at it in a greater situation than just an item on the education, because it's an extreme change to our to the future of education in the Western Isles.
There'll be more seminars, definitely.
In terms of Councillor Mackenzie's question, absolutely. I mean, what we're aiming to bring forward today is information in relation to reporting on the findings and to help try and shape a policy. When we get to moving from that policy to operational delivery, it's going to take a significant amount of work, and certainly not work that can be undertaken by this committee alone. So absolutely, we will be moving forward. But at the moment, it's to share the findings of the report and to agree the next steps for us.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Kenny MacLeod. Who's got the light on? Switch up. Is it? Thanks.
Thanks, Chair, and thank you for the report there. And as was discussed at the seminar, and I think I take huge encouragement from your comments there that it is going to be a whole Western Isles solution that we're looking at, and more importantly, that we're looking at something very new, very different, and it could be something completely different from what we're used to, but we have to be open to ways of finding it to work. It has to work, and we need to work on finding ways and be willing to adapt and change the different ways. Most of us study traditionally in a school all the time with the same pupils around us. eSchool has been going for 10 years now, and it's been going from strength to strength. Things are developing all the time, and I think we need to be ready to look at that. But I think that the most important thing, when I think back to early days in here, when we're talking about the initial feasibility study about a Gaelic secondary school, the assumption and the thoughts were that it would be initially in Stornoway and then looking to spread out. And I think the good thing is that this study has shown that there is a huge demand throughout the islands and that all our communities need to be part of this and the provision has to be there. I came through secondary education with hostels, and certainly, certainly the last 4 years in the Nicholson, I was more than happy there. But I know it's a different attitude nowadays, and I think we need to keep our young people in our communities. We're talking about depopulation, we're talking about economic development. 4 centres throughout the Western Isles is going to be a much better, a much stronger, a much longer term economic benefit than having one satellite with little bits and pieces. I think we have to find a solution for all. I know there's lots of challenges, teaching staff for one of them, and we educate them, but we have to look at the solutions and be willing. And I think getting involved early on with the Scottish Government to ensure that we have a say in how the training of teachers is done as well, and not just being dictated to, that things that work for us have to work as well. I think we came up with the Gaelic committee yesterday about the need for teachers to be able to learn and to do courses in their own communities rather than having to go off island. And I think that's something that we need to be addressing as well as part of this.
Thanks.
Yeah, and maybe just comment on some of Councillor McLeod's issues there. Absolutely. Firstly, your last point in terms of teacher recruitment and training, it's recognised in the report and is pivotal to this. There is an interesting observation in the report in terms of they spent a lot of time going through our existing staffing, and there is recognition that we currently hold more staff that have the capability to deliver in Gaelic that currently aren't able to because of pressures to deliver the rest of the curriculum in English too. They're fully utilised teachers. It's not that they're not teaching, but they're having to take classes in English too. So there is the potential to do some restructuring, be able to release some of that resource. However, there is absolutely also a need, and there's an opportunity in this, or whatever we create, to address the training of the next generation of teachers too, and for us to grow our own future workforce to meet the needs of this service. And it's been a thread throughout this that there's an opportunity for whatever this establishment becomes to form part of that initial teacher education landscape. I think I would also agree with Councillor MacLeod in terms of that this study has given us much more information and understanding about what the communities of the Western Isles think in total. And we know that maybe we had some preconceived ideas about the way ahead early on in our debates around this. And I think the findings of the report give us a moment to pause and think about, actually, we've got a more complex solution that we have to develop here.
Okay, thanks. Right, so we'll move on to Councillor Donald McSween online.
And I think, given how long Mr. MacLeod's summary of the report took at the beginning of the subject, it's an indicator of just how many questions have arisen from receiving the report. Perhaps what we didn't know beforehand let us think that we had a more straightforward route towards some kind of facility. So I think following the discussions yesterday at Committee in the Gaelic, I think everybody was generally supportive, but as Mr. MacLeod, Councillor MacLeod raised there, things in regards to staffing, it's not just teaching staffing. If it was going to be an actual building somewhere, it's not just teaching staff that we have to consider for something like this. It would also be everybody that would be employed on a campus if that's what happened. But generally, supportive of this, and look forward to see what comes out of phase 2.
Okay, thanks, Donald. Cheers. Councillor Angus McCormack.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Kenny MacLeod has actually raised the point that I wanted to raise, and that is I'm very much in favour of this project, but I do accept it's going to have to be very innovative. It's going to be something that we don't have in existence at the moment, and consequently, I think that the use of the methodology and characterisation of the Eascol could be a very important part of allowing this school to exist across all of our islands. It's very difficult. I wouldn't advocate for going anywhere in particular, certainly not at the moment anyway, but I'm very much in favour of finding a school which will be a different kind of school to any school that we've ever had before, in order to accommodate the island nature that we have. And I'd love to see that happening. I think it'd be quite unique, and very encouraged by this report.
Thanks, Angus. Thanks. So if there are no other questions, Councillor Cal McLean.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, I agree with what has already gone before. And thanks for the summary, Mr. MacLeod. It was a comprehensive summary on a very large document. And there's a lot in the document. It raises probably more questions than it answers. And that's good about it. It's really good because the way it goes about it. But I would say that we've been 40 years in this islands with Gaelic medium. It is a shame that when we put in Gaelic medium, we didn't put in the prospect of a high school to continue the good work that has been done in Gaelic medium. Because there's good work in Gaelic medium in the primary, and there is good work in the secondary. I'm not saying that the secondary isn't in what it does. However, as brought out in the meeting in the Skip and the Gaelic yesterday, the ethos of the school is important. And the ethos surrounds the spoken word, Gaelic. If you don't have the ethos of the school, the Gaelic language being talked in the school as it is in the Gaelic medium schools, if you don't have that in the high school, then I'm afraid that Eascol does not lend itself to it, because Eascol is a far away, it's a distant learning. Whereas the school that we're talking about is a community of people, and the community of people speak the language. And I'm afraid, I know that the joint campus may lend itself to something. I don't know. It's an innovative principle in one sense. But however, I do firmly believe that we do need to a radical rethink, and that is whether it is. But I was at home last night after the meeting. I looked at an example of Gaelic medium in an island setting, and it's in Portree. Portree School has got a high school of 500, I think I cooked the numbers here, 503 pupils. But there is a Gaelic medium in Portree, and it's got 229. It started on the 16th of April, 2018. It has 229 in the secondary, 169 in the primary, and 60 in the Scolari. That's good numbers. That's really good numbers. That started in 2018, so it's 8 years down the line. And it's obviously successful. Now, does that lend itself to Stornoway? I think it does. I understand fully what the councillors from Southern Isles and Talbot would say, well, it can't apply to us. But we've got to start somewhere. And if we would start in Stornoway and then extend it to Uist, for instance, and then maybe extend it further on. So I'm just saying that is a way that I would certainly go about it, is look at, because the way you can do it is, you've got 2 primary schools in Stornoway already, and you've got a secondary high school. You could quite easily take one of these primary schools and put them into a primary come secondary as well in Stornoway. Therefore, you could have the larger number of population, which is west and north of Lewis. And then there could be an extension of a similar school in the US. Because at the end of the day, if we're serious about language, and if we're serious about Gaelic, we have to fund it. And the Scottish government has to fund it if they're serious. And it's the funding of it could be done in schools, small schools to start off with, because I can't see anything else. But my thinking is an elderly person's thinking, so therefore, at the present time, but I can't see that anything but that. If you're going to have a true Gaelic school, you've got to have the ethos that was brought out yesterday at Keeping the Gaelic, and I think, and Mr. MacLeod mentioned it initially today, that is what undermines the success of a Gaelic school. Don't do anything ad hoc. if you're not going to be serious about it. Because I do think we lost the boat 30 years ago. But we've got the boat is out, but it can be brought back in. And that's the way to do it. I can't see any other way. And that's why I think that what has been done here is excellent. It's what's coming afterward that I feel is what we have to, and we have to act. If we don't act, I'm going to give you 2 examples. I'm sorry for taking up your time, but last week I was speaking to a pupil in S1. He's going into S2. I was asking him about the choices that he was going to make for the next year. He went through the whole Gaelic medium, primary 1 to 7, went into the Nicholson. He said, first thing he says, I'm dropping his Gaelic. Dropping it. Not going to have it. That seems consistent with most of the Gaelic people in the high school we've got. They seem to drop the language. I could be wrong on that, but I think the data shows that. The other person I was speaking to was he was a plumber. He'd been a plumber for the best part of 20 years. Left the Gaelic medium 20 years ago. Went straight into the high school. And today he said, I can't speak the language. I cannot speak the language. And he's from a rural district in Lewis. Was brought up in a rural district in Lewis, spent most of his life there, moved to Stornoway about 3 years ago. And he says, he says, when we went into the senior school, we didn't have the interaction with the pupils that we were with in the primary school. So it stops. And it's not any criticism of the high school. It is just fact. English is the predominant language and it's going to be used. And I don't criticize any of the teachers in the high school for that at all. That's what we have. So that's 2 examples in the last fortnight. And I think by that, I think we should be doing something to progress the language. If we don't do it, the language is dead.
I agree. Yep. Okay, thanks, Councillor Susan Thompson. Do you want to just bring your mic in closer, please, because we can't hear it really. That's it. Okay. That's it.
Thanks for that. Just to challenge what Councillor McLean had said there, there's nothing that would suggest that if this was the option that it couldn't be used first. There is a higher proportion of Gaelic speakers in Uist. So to my way of thinking, Uist first and then satellites elsewhere. There's nothing natural in that anything would happen in Stornoway first. Anywhere in the Western Isles could be equally well placed as this initial site if that is the way that it goes. So I just don't want that to go unchallenged in case there's an assumption that we all agree that it should be Stornoway first. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Susan. It'll come out in the study anyway. I mean, all this will be investigated and discussed in the study. You know.
I was just very briefly going to say that very thing, Chair. That it's to explore all of what Councillor McLean and Councillor Thompson is talking about that we're proposing in the second phase, and that is about a roadmap for each location. And it may be that different sites require different solutions. It's not about a one-size-fits-all solution either, but it's absolutely to take on board all these diverse views and to try and map out how that could work in the different communities.
Okay, so if there are no more, Councillor Vice Chair.
Thanks very much. I think what I was going to say has been summarised by the Chief Officer. I think it's the option. I think the next option will be to explore what Councillor McLean was saying, what Councillor Kenneth was saying and Susan was saying. It's all, but there is no assumptions to be taken. I just want to add something else in terms of the ethos we're talking about. And I think when you talk about language and the ethos and, the way I see how we preserve languages, it's not just about keeping that language prisoner in a building, so a physical building might yield results in terms of exams and different things, but preserving a language is when you go to the butcher and speaking Gaelic, when you go to football and speaking Gaelic, and so the ethos is just to add to what Mr. McLean was saying, is the ethos is not just about the building, it's a community. So it's developing. So, maybe the solution is not just looking at building one in Stornoway or Uist or Barrow or whatever. The ethos is how do we develop a community that will preserve that language and encourage it and, you know, push it. So, but that hopefully that discussion that will come along in the second phase of this. So thank you.
Thanks, Vice Chair. Thanks. Right. So if there are no other questions, no. Do members agree to approve the recommendation at 3.1? Right. So we're going to take a 5-minute break, literally 5 minutes. And what time is it now? 14 is that? Yeah. So 20 past, we'll come back. And I'll start at 20 past. So if you're not back, we're just going to start anyway. So no, I shouldn't have said that. They'll not come back. None of them will come back. As long as we'll core it, yeah. But we'll need to crack. They're not back. It's tough. Right. We ready? 7. No, we'll core it. There's enough there. Definitely core it. Absolutely core it. That, yeah. Okay, let's do it. Right. Item 6. Report by Report by HM Inspectors of Education, Scoileadh and Scoláiriúig, June 2026. The report at item 6 details the outcome of the follow-up inspection at Scoileadh and Scoláiriúig by His Majesty's Inspectorate from Education Scotland, as published in June 2026. And Ms. Patricia McLeod will speak to the report and answer any questions. And we have the head teacher, Miss Anne-Marie Beaton, here to answer any questions as well, should anybody in the committee have any questions. Right, okay, you're on. Thanks, Fish, thanks.
The purpose of this report is to inform the Comhairle of the HMI re-inspection which took place in Scoileadh in March 2026. Scoileadh was inspected in 2023, where they were graded as weak for 2.3 learning teaching assessment and satisfactory for reading attainment and achievement 3.2. In June 2024, HMI returned and saw a little improvement, but required to return again. They visited again in February 2025 and were very happy with the progress of improvement at that time, but wished to return in a year to ensure sustainability, continuity and consistency. In February 2026, the Care Inspectorate visited Scoláiriúig. They awarded a very good for leadership, a good for children play and learn, and a good for children are supported to achieve. And you'll see this detailed in paragraph 6.2. In March 2026, HMI returned to the school, the whole school. They were very happy that there had been further progress in all the developmental areas. They were also satisfied that the school was in a sustainable situation with continuous, consistent approach. You will see that from paragraph 6.4 that there is a very positive picture. HMI are satisfied that they do not need to return to Scoileadh again. So it is recommended that the Comhairle notes the findings of the inspection that is published by the HMI inspectors and recognises the significance and sustained improvement work undertaken by the school in the last 2 years. Ms. Tapalai is going to question.
Okay, thanks, Trish. Does anyone have any questions? Councillor Misty MacDonald.
I'd just like to commend Anne-Marie and her staff for turning the school around in that short space of time, and Trish for all her help with it, and well done.
Thanks, Mr. Councillor Francis Murray.
Thanks very much, Chair. I would like to add my congratulations to the head teacher and executive head teacher on this excellent report, and just to say that I visited the school last month with a food safety certificate for the canteen and had a wee tour of the school, and it was a really, really nice atmosphere, ethos very evident from the lovely work on the walls and the attitude of the children in the classrooms, and I think a very well deserved report, and congratulations to everybody involved.
Okay, thanks. I was just going to say, just to on behalf of the committee, I was going to actually commend the significant sustained progress you'd made with the improvement over the last 2 years under your leadership. So it's just a big thank you from the committee in general, to be honest. So are there any other questions? Anyone else? Councillor Callum McLean.
I'd just like to commend Anne-Marie as well for what she's done. It takes I was going to say a naturalised backer, but she's not quite that. But it takes a resident backer like myself actually to. I've said that I'm a resident backer. I'm not a naturalised. Actually, if I'm naturalised, I'm from Uig actually. So it's nice to see what's been done. But well, very well done to the team.
Thanks, Councillor Gordon Murray.
Thanks, Chair. I'm not a member of the committee. I just want to acknowledge the good work that's happened at the school, especially, and I understand there's so much work involved in preparing for inspections, and they can be quite stressful affairs. So I think it's great that you're commended for your work in that area, and well done. It's a great result and a great report.
Okay, thanks. Okie dokie. So if there are no other questions or comments, do members agree to the recommendation at 3.1? Okay, thanks a lot. Cheers. Thanks, guys. Right, so we'll move on to item 7. That's promoting and managing school attendance policy and procedures. This report seeks the adoption of the promoting and managing school attendance policy and procedures. And Ms Anne Graham, Quality Improvement Officer for Attainment, will speak to the report and answer any questions. Thanks, Anne.
Chair, thank you. As you mentioned there, the purpose of the report is for the committee to consider the adoption of the promoting and managing school attendance policy and procedures. As I'm sure many of you are aware, there is a national concern in terms of reduced levels of attendance, particularly since the COVID-19 pandemic. Recently, Education Scotland published a report and asked all local authorities to monitor their strategic and implementation plans to improve attendance. Local authorities and schools were provided with a suite of resources and professional learning to support them to refresh their current attendance policies and guidance. The formation of our policy has sought best policy and practice guidance from Education Scotland and other local authorities, and we've adapted that to our own needs and practice. Our policy provides general principles and a comprehensive structure to support our educational establishments to create or refresh their own attendance policies. Our policy and the associated guidelines applies to all our educational establishments across Comhairle and Eilean and are relevant to all children and young people. Within the policy, whilst we refer to schools, it is intended that many of the processes and the practice should be in place across all educational establishments, including early years. The policy recognises as well that we must increase our pull factors back to our schools to increase the engagement and motivation of our learners and to compete with the range of factors that are impacting on attendance. Since the pandemic, Comhairle and Eilean has been developing practices to both maximise attendance and reduce absence, as well as improve the engagement within our schools. This policy provides guidance to establishments on procedures to support attendance, reduce absence. It also provides legal guidance that educational establishments should follow. And the policy reflects the collaborative approach that we are promoting and encouraging in terms of working alongside partners and families. And we recognise that this is required to support attendance and reduce absence in our educational establishments. As you'll have seen within the policy, we have clear procedures in relation to the recording of attendance, absence and lateness, managing that attendance and absence, and also monitoring the absence in order to support improved attendance. We are committed to providing ongoing training to all our senior and middle leaders and also local authority leads in the effective implementation and operation of the attendance policy and procedures. And that's to ensure that consistent approach and full understanding of what we're trying to achieve. In addition to the core policy, you'll have also seen we've created additional guidance developed to address the specific use of the flexible timetables. We've created that following advice from the Scottish Government. They're looking for us to ensure that we've got that consistent approach in terms of the use of flexible timetables for pupils experiencing attendance issues. And a copy of the guidance has been shared alongside the committee report. So in conclusion, the promoting and managing school attendance policy and procedures represents the Comhairle's ongoing commitment to improve attendance and engagement and reduce absence. It provides an overview of all our existing approaches, on improving attendance, as well as new and evolving initiatives that we're driving to tackle absence. This policy provides a clear framework to support improved outcomes for our learners and their family, and wishes that today the policy would be endorsed by the committee. I'm happy to take any questions as well.
Right, thanks, Anne. Does anybody have any questions? Councillor Callum McLean.
Yes, and thanks for the report. I was when I was reading through it, and you've mentioned it in your summary today, is you use the term pull factor. Can you elaborate? I take it one of them was flexible timetables. Can you elaborate more on what that pull factors that you're going to use? Because I know that there are some pupils, and one of the times that they don't like coming to school is actually at intervals. I've been speaking to some, and actually sometimes it's lunch times and sometimes intervals. They are very lonely pupils I'm talking about. So I'm saying this pull factors, are you going to expand on that?
Certainly, I will. Thank you. So in terms of pull factors, that's obviously looking at what we can do to engage and motivate and support our learners. I think the most important aspect of that is looking at relationships. That's the core to everything, and should be the core of what we achieve and what we're looking to do. So a real focus on relationships within our school, looking at nurturing approaches. We've had work taking place at the moment in terms of that, alongside our additional support team. So looking at focusing on relationships, focusing on nurture approaches, focusing as well on the curriculum and how the curriculum looks within the school and the settings. And an element of that is, as you mentioned there, the flexible timetabling. I mean, the ultimate, what we want is all our children engaging and attending, and that's not necessarily in school. The flexible timetable gives that opportunity for the place-based learning, for them to be learning out with the school, but ultimately the school has that oversight of what the pupils are learning and achieving whilst engaging with the flexible timetable. Also looking at what the school day looks like for individual pupils. Mr. MacDonald mentioned earlier there around room 19. So a number of our schools have developed approaches within their own school, namely the room 19 or nurture basis as well, to support individual pupils. Another major factor in terms of the pull factor to school is that engagement with our families, and again bringing it back to the relationships, ensuring that there's that support and trust being developed with our families. We've created what we're calling attendance forums. We've implemented them across this session and they have been successful. So we've got primary and secondary attendance forums where we look in depth at our pupils who are struggling to attend, and then we provide feedback to schools, look at the planning that's taking place, look at the team around that child to ensure that that what's in place is making a difference. So we have a number of different approaches, initiatives in place within our schools. Another thing that we've recently introduced is an attendance lead in the Nicholson Institute. We've identified that our secondaries, particularly at S3 and our kind of female pupils, we're seeing a drop off there, and that's a national issue. It's not just locally. So we've put in place an attendance lead in our across our local authority based in the Nicholson, and that attendance lead is currently developing trackers, again looking at that granular detail so that we can identify where the challenges and barriers are. So we do have a number of supports and approaches in place, but ultimately, and I'm sure anyone who within education will agree with this, that ultimately we have to get the relationships right, the nurture approaches. If we get that correct, then that's the biggest pull factor to school, that every single child has a trusted adult that they know that they can go to that's going to support them in terms of attending school.
Okay, thanks, Anne. Councillor Frances Murray, I think, was next.
Thank you very much. Can I congratulate and thank Mrs. Graham for this really very, very comprehensive report, and I think the guidance that is produced in the appendix that we see there for the use of monitoring of attendance, I think it's really excellent to see that all in the one place, because it is a complex system. However, there was one thing that I wanted on page 16. It refers to everybody having the duty to make the return. And one of the issues that I remember, and it may well be that this is no longer the case because it's 4 years since I've had to trouble myself with these attendance codes, was that supply teachers did not get a seamless login. So that every supply teacher, and sometimes you could have 10 in a big school on one day, whether people were absent or people were off for training or whatever reason. So these people had to, for every class, and they teach 7 in the day, send a paper copy down to the office. Now, it's pretty easy to get into the drill of having the attendance ready on your computer when you go into the classroom and the class comes in, and very quickly doing the register. But if you're a supply teacher and maybe not as au fait with the class as the ordinary teacher is, getting that done in 10 minutes is quite difficult. And when you have to do it on paper and either send a pupil off down to the office or ask another member of staff to take it down to the office, it can be, quite an intrusive part of your lesson. That is exacerbated, obviously, in times of a power cut or when CMIS is down, which does happen, and you hear the dread cry of CMIS is down, and everybody is sending these bits of paper to the office. And you can imagine in a school like the Nicholson just how busy that is for the school office to be doing all that manually. I just wondered, had there been any provision made to give supply teachers access to CMIS? And if not, would that not be a good idea to ensure consistency? The other point I had, I was interested to read that codes MD, F and H were referring to swine flu. I never knew that. So there you are, I've learned something. It's too late for me to apply it, but I now know that. On the appendix to the flexible learning application, there's a form, just a wee discrepancy. There's a form that says this form is for primary and secondary sector only. And yet, when you go onto the pupils' details, there's a column for early years. Just a wee discrepancy on that. But apart from that, I think it's really, really good and be very useful to staff to have that as a kind of one-stop reference point for all what their duties are, and what happens when attendance drops below 90, 80, 70, and so on. It's a very, very good document. Well done.
Okay, thanks, Frances.
Thanks Frances.
Right, so Councillor Norm MacDonald online.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks, Mrs. Graham, for your report. I know things are difficult when it comes to the monitoring of activity and where everybody should be in codes and everything else. And I know we did have a problem a while ago, which was addressed, I think it was called in-school absence, where pupils were unable to be tracked and their movements between classes, etc. So they were disappearing within the school. Much as I fear that the proposed ban on access to social media in schools, kids will find a way around pretty much everything. They're very innovative, as probably you know better than anybody else. The teaching profession know better than anybody else when it comes to trying to track and keep check of kids. Kids can be very, very inventive. I sat on a panel a couple of years ago now where we had a variety of applicants for a post within the school. I was hugely impressed with the applications, and this was to do with school absence. I think it was Catherine Ann MacLeod who was given the post to tackle school absence within the Nicholson. I'm talking primarily about the Nicholson here. Can I ask what the results of her post were and how she succeeded, or how she got on? Did she succeed? And can I ask what's happened to that post? Because I believe she's no longer working in that particular role. It was primarily to deal with absence, and this is going back a couple of years. So can you update us on how that went and what the results of her post were?
Yeah, it was successful. I worked myself alongside Catherine Ann as well, and she helped shape the attendance forums that Councillor MacDonald, that we've currently got in place, and also supported the team within the Nicholson. They've done a power of work in terms of, I mentioned earlier, the attendance tracker, doing a period by period attendance tracker. So ultimately focusing on the issue that you mentioned earlier around pupils that go to school but then aren't maybe attending in the classes. They did a big focus around that, Catherine Ann leading on that. So certainly the work that she did have an impact. She obviously then went back to her substantive post, but we then, that's why we've now looked at utilising some of our strategic equity fund, and we've got an attendance lead now, a secondment for the next 10 months. Sam Jones from the Nicholson Institute is taking on that role. But yes, ultimately, Catherine Ann decided that she wanted to go back to her substantive post, but absolutely in terms of the monitoring and tracking of attendance, and also the work within Room 19 as well. Catherine Ann did, her work did have an impact in terms of supporting attendance within the Nicholson.
Thanks for that update, Anne. Thank you.
Thanks, Anne. So if there are no other questions, do members agree to adopt the managing school attendance policy and procedures? Yep, thanks. So thanks, Anne. Thanks for that. So we'll move on to item 8, which is School Engagement Officer, Campus Officer, 3-year extension. This report relates to the School Engagement Officer or the Campus Police Officer, and seeks approval to extend the partnership agreement with Police Scotland for a 3rd year to promote a school engagement officer to secondary schools in the Western Isles. And Mr. Donald McLeod will speak to the report. Thanks, Donald.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This report seeks to give a degree of update to the Chamber in relation to the work of the School Engagement Officer, the Campus Officer, but also primarily to seek approval to use department funds to extend our arrangement for a 3rd year. Just for the purpose of clarity, the 1st and 2nd year of this project was funded through external funding that the Comhairle has received through the Team in Scotland Fund, but it's not possible to fund that from the same source for a 3rd year. So if we were to continue the project, we would have to find alternative funding to progress it. So first of all, we would be keen to have a presentation from the campus officer to give much more detail of their work at a future sitting of this committee, but we didn't feel it appropriate to have him here today when we're discussing whether or not to extend the role. But should that be agreed, we will arrange for that to be done. So I know they've attended the committee previously and given an update, and it was well received by members, but a lot more work has happened since then. I would be keen to update that. So the campus officer, the School Engagement Officer project has worked very well, worked very effectively in terms of particularly the Stornoway area and to some degree the work done in Harris, very much focusing on, in the 2nd year, moving from on-campus support, which is still an element of the project, to wider community support and engagement with school-aged children, with diversionary activity from youth antisocial behaviour being a particular focus. One of the most successful projects that they undertook in the course of this year, and you may have seen some social media coverage of this, was the Comhairle working in partnership with Action for Children and the campus officer and wider colleagues from Police Scotland to introduce the Kickabout with a Cop initiative, which was piloted this year. The officer has also been working very closely in school with specific children and young people, working particularly in guidance classes and supporting individual and group activity there, but also very importantly reaching out to community activity around, for instance, the Shed, youth clubs in Stornoway, Action for Children throughout the islands as well. recognise that this has been an evolving and developing project. It doesn't work in the same way as other campus officers in other establishments across the country. It's been slightly different, a more bespoke approach, and that's required some degree of evolution. And the report does recognise that should there be agreement to extend for a third year, that we would be proposing that a significant focus of that third year is to move the effectiveness of that work into Euston Barra, which has not been able to be successfully delivered to the same degree so far to date. The proposal is that the Comhairle is able, that the department, should I say, is able to use funding that has been identified through various underspends that we have in the current financial year to carry forward to fund this post. We have sufficient funds available to do that, and it's seeking the authorisation of the Comhairle to use these underspends and balances to fund a third year of the officer and to really embed that work further throughout the Western Isles. It also seeks the delegated authority to agree the service level agreement with Police Scotland, and I would wish to reassure members in doing so that there are no substantive changes to the existing service level agreement other than some standard salary arrangements. So overall, it is the view of the department and of officers that it's been an exceptionally worthwhile initiative that's really positively engaged young people. It's significantly, I would say, evidenced reduction, not eradication by any means, but reduction in youth antisocial behaviour, which has been an issue that has vexed this chamber and our communities for some time. And it's not the totality of the solution for that, but it's definitely contributed to reduction in the issues that we experienced there. And the establishment of positive relationships with young people has been significant, and we would hope would be able to continue to be built on. So I would commend the recommendations to the chamber and be happy to answer questions, Chair.
Okay, thanks. Ray.
Thank you, Stuart. Yeah, I'm absolutely in favour of this, and I know I've seen the results on the ground, or I've heard of the results on the ground, that certainly there's been an improvement locally. The one question, the reason I'm coming in now actually is just to ask, when the police report their establishment to us, do they count this as one of their established officers? I mean, if we're paying for it, we really should get another cop on board.
That's an answer I don't have, I'm afraid, Councillor Mackenzie. I'm not sure whether this additional officer counts in the overall deployment of officers for Police Scotland End Division into the Western Isles, but it's a question I'm happy to ask the area commander for clarification on and revert back to you on it. But for us, they have a very specific remit. There is a condition within the service level agreement where they can be called back to routine policing in the case of critical need, but their duties are almost primarily undertaken in terms of supporting campus duties and community duties. So on that basis, I would be surprised if it also counted as part of the overall officer deployment, because they are not routinely deployed. But I'll check with the area commander when we discuss the service level agreement and provide a response on that.
Okay, thanks, Ray. So, Vice Chair.
Thank you very much, Chair. I had the pleasure to meet the policeman a few times, and also I noticed firsthand when attending the youth conference a few weeks ago in the Cala, how the positive impact that the campus policeman has delivered. However, I think Mr. McLeod, the chief officer, mentioned about the engagement in the Euston Barra schools. I think I'm a bit concerned about the information I'm receiving from the Euston Barra schools, or the lack of engagement. And I think sometimes I used the word to the chief officer yesterday when we talked about the discouragement. So I would like I think this one to be sort of looked at a bit more in detail, to see how do we encourage the Euston Barra schools to take the same opportunities and to afford the young people the same opportunities to engage with the campus officer, and if there is anything else we can do to support that positive engagement, from our side, we're happy to do. But it'll be good to see
the good work that the campus officer is delivering. I mean, especially since if we're engaging to pay their salaries, I would say it myself as although as a policeman, but as part of the education staff that will, should be deployed, and the remit as a Western Isles should be deployed equally around all schools. And if there is any positive experience, it's only good, and I encourage you to spread it and so thanks very much for that.
Thank you, Chair. You have to respond to the Vice Chair on that. Couple of points I would make. First of all, I suppose initially, although we've always identified this as a Western Isles campus officer, a lot of that early engagement has been about working to address the youth antisocial behaviour issues that have been experienced in and around the town of Stornoway, which partly was being driven by young people coming in from rural communities into Stornoway, as well as the local population. So that has been a focus, but that, and as has been recognised, is significantly reduced. There are concerns around how we expand this to Euston Barrow. It's recognised in the report that we must do that. So in two actions that we're intending to undertake to address the concerns that the Vice Chair rightly raises. Firstly is to recognise that formally in the service level agreement so that it's properly documented about the commitments to Euston Barrow from the officer side. But secondly, some of the reports I've received confirmed that schools haven't necessarily engaged positively with the offer either. So we'll be undertaking meetings with the head teachers of the schools in Euston Barrow to make sure that when offer of support and services made, that it's taken up and positively received. So we'll follow up on both these fronts in terms of what the Vice Chair has raised.
Okay, thanks. So, where are we next? Councillor Gordon. Gordon Murray. Oh, sorry. Can switch off the lights, please, and I'll just. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not a member of your committee, but I just wanted to say on the campus co-op and the project, and especially the campus co-op himself, there's been really excellent feedback on his role and how he goes about his work. He's been excellent, and that's from children and also workers who work with children. So he's done really well. I do note that the antisocial behaviour has reduced in terms of I'm not getting so many emails about it, and I note it's not been brought up in association meetings as much as it used to. And I know that it's multifaceted reasons why, but I think he's had a positive impact on that, and that's really great. So I'm not a member of the committee, but I'd be commending the committee to support this, and if it can be, he can be put down to Euston Barrow to help them, all the better. But it's a great project, so well done.
Thanks, Gordon. So I think Councillor Kenny was next. When was Ian Archie? Okay, I'll bring Ian Archie in. And I've got the queue here. You are allowed to come in. I have the list. I didn't notice you. All right.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not a member of your committee. I fully support this, and everything I was going to say has been said before now. But we have to really look at supporting Euston Barrow in this and build it into the school programme to make sure that the schools engage with the officer.
Thanks. Kenny.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, and I think just echoing everybody else, it's been a very positive and a very successful project, this, and I think it is encouraging. I think we do need to support it, but also I think it's been said, spread it throughout the Western Isles. Yeah, the issue is there, but I think going back to Councillor Mackenzie's point, a lot of the rural areas have lost police. Have been brought into Stornoway to manage police. The Harris policeman is really not a Harris policeman because of that. I would hope that if we're paying for this post, then that the police are able to get an extra officer to work in rural areas to manage that, because if we're losing resources from the rural areas to police this in Stornoway and we're paying for it, then I would say I'd be asking the question, where have they got that extra policeman in if we're paying for it? And also, at the end of the day, it's a policing matter they're doing anyway. Their role is to reduce crime, and that's happening. So I'm happy if we can pay for it out of an underspend, but if they're not backfilling that post by having an extra resource in the Western Isles, then I think we need to be asking stronger questions on that.
I'll just respond on that,
Yeah,
Chair.
quickly,
I will clarify that with the area commander just for the purposes of certainty, but I know from having been involved in the inception of the post and the practicality of the work that the officer is undertaking, it is additionality. I don't have the answers in terms of the overall policing position beyond the campus officer, but we do know in practical terms a campus officer is working almost wholly on duties relating to this role. As I mentioned, there is a clause where they can be called back into routine policing if there is a requirement to do so, but there's been very, very little indeed of that kind of engagement. That primarily related since the inception of the post to matters that the policeman had to settle from previous deployments, such as having to attend court relating to cases prior to appointment and so on. And that has gradually obviously reduced over time. So the evidence that we have is that officer is working fully on the deployment that we are funding. But I appreciate the clarity that members seeking as what's happening to the rest, and that there isn't a reduction in officer deployment in the Western Isles. So I'll ask the area commander to clarify and inform members.
Okay. Ken. Francis, I think, was next. Whoever comes on. Lights need to go off.
Thanks, Chair. Just in relation to that last point, I just wanted to say that the police report at the Community Safety Board last week reported on the campus COB. So I don't know, does that give a bit of an indication of the fact that they see it as layers? Yeah. But just to note, it was, it's obviously a very good report and really highlighted the excellent work being done with the community and the partnerships that we're working together with them. But I did think that was maybe interesting in that regard.
Okay, thanks, Francis. George, I think, was next.
Thank you, Chair. Very briefly, are we paying fully for PC Steel? Are we funding them completely? That's the first question. And an observation in relation to that, it seems to me the cops are in a win-win situation if they can call this officer back due to the exigencies of duty. He will be on their complement. And the second thing is, we're asking a lot of that officer if we're going to be sending him to Euston Barra to build the same relationships as he's so successfully done here. Can we not identify someone in that part of the command area, even maybe on a part-time basis? Just wondering. And it's just an observation. Thank you, Chair.
I'll respond to these questions, Chair. Firstly, as is identified in the report, the scheme has also, as always, required the council to pay the 100% of the direct salary cost for the officer, but Police Scotland meet all other aspects of employee costs and expenses and so on. It's a valid point in terms of the clause requiring callback to active service. However, that's had not been an issue to date in terms of that having to happen, but there's equally a clause where we can deduct our costs back should that occur. So if the officer is required to go on to active police duty, we can recover, should I say, the equivalent costs back in terms of what we've agreed. It is a valid point as well in terms of the ask of the officer, but one of the things that we recognise is in the 2 years that the post has been in place, a significant amount of the groundwork has now been done in Lewis and Harris, and the focus over the third year may be more around maintaining that work whilst expanding into Euston Barra. But we will have conversations with the area commander as well about whether there's other capacity in policing in Euston Barra that could support that too.
Okay, thanks, George. I think Susan's last, so we'll make this the last item and the last comment, and then we'll.
Thank you very much, Chair. If I could just look at the role of gender in this, when we're talking about youth antisocial behaviour, is that male and females that are involved in that in the towns?
Yes, Councillor Thompson, it is. It's different at different times because it's not a static situation because young people come and go from this. And if I take over the last 2 years, looking generally at casework, sometimes it's been primarily boys. Some of the issues that we're experiencing currently is primarily girls. So I would say it's over averaging it out. We are seeing 50-50 of male and female offenders.
So, I mean, I'm in support of the initiative generally, but just if we're looking at male and females being involved in this antisocial behaviour, and we know that young women's participation in sport tails off when they get to high school, how effective do we think things like Kickabout with a Cop are going to be for the young women who are involved in antisocial behaviour, and what are we doing to deal with those young women who are involved in this?
That's a very valid point that Councillor Thompson makes, and I would wish to be assured that if we take Kickabout with a Cop as an example, that involved multiple officers, female and male officers. It was coordinated and run through the partnership with Action for Children and the campus officer in establishing it, but it involved, I think there were maybe 5 or 6 different officers involved in the delivery of it, male and female. And I think when you see the coverage in the media, there was a good proportion of girls and boys involved in it. So, but I'm conscious of the point that you're wishing to make there, Councillor Thompson, and we'll feed that back to the area commander as well, so that they have recognition of that too. But the evidence that we have so far to date is that it hasn't been a barring issue for participation to date, but definitely something that we'll monitor.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Okay, thanks. So if there are no other questions, do members agree to approve the recommendation at 3.1? Right, thanks. So we're going to move on now to the last item. It's going to be the last item before we adjourn. So because we want to give everyone a bit of a break before sustainable starts, and we'll reconvene after sustainable. Okay, because there's a lot to go through yet, so we'll never get it done. Right, so this is item 9, and this is Children's Services, Fostering Adoption and Continuing Care Inspection Update. The reported item 9 details progress with improvement in fostering, adoption and continuing care services, and to update on the findings of a recent progress inspection as published in March 2026. Mr. Maxwell Smart will speak to the report. Okay, thanks, Maxwell.
Thank you, Chair. The purpose of the report is to note the update of the remediation of the care inspector concerns regarding the above services, fostering, adoption, continued care. The report notes care inspector visit in March of this year, an update on progress to remediate the concerns identified. The care inspector recognised progress in reform of these services, but these reforms were not at a sufficiently advanced enough state to alter the overall concerns that they had. While considerable work has been done by officers with many remediated items of concern near completion, these items were not yet completed and could not be signed off. Work is continuing on items such as recruitment of foster carers, policy reformation with items lost in the cyber attack, and these items will be brought before this September series. The policy areas are in policy update and contemporisation in relation to the promise in regards to continued care, our fostering policy and adoption policy. There'll be a promise guarantee and a rewritten handbook with smart planning and a plan for direct recruitment of foster carers, which is ongoing, but these updates will be given in September series. The care inspector in inspection of fostering, adoption, continued care noted some deep concerns about the services in the past. These inspections since these inspections took place, officers in education and children's services have worked to implement a series of reforms in order to address and reform fostering, adoption, continued care offers for the Comhairle. The service has been restructured into an overall resource team, incorporating kin care and wider ELR aftercare services. The new team leader has been appointed and social work capacity increased from 1 to 2 social workers. This has been a clear action and reform action plan agreed, and work on each item progressed over the course of 2025. care inspector concerns of these services were wide-ranging, ranging from low morale of carers to problems with policies and practices lacking update and consequently resulting in failures to match contemporised thinking and commitment to the promise and wider concerns of young people's rights in regards to continued care. Policies and practices have been and are continuing to be reformed, but we're not at stages of completion at the time of inspection. Indeed, policy reformation, though having been undertaken, had not been fulfilled to the degree of satisfaction of the care inspector at that point of inspection. As noted above, it's recognised by the care inspector significant work has been undertaken by officers, but were incomplete. Much of the delay in full progress can be attributed to long-term absence, particularly of two social work staff involved in that service, and a situation that has just been remediated in May with these essential staff returning. There's also been a temporary staff member appointed to support remediation of these actions. To address the staffing issues, temporary staffing measures have been taken, facilitate further progress in areas such as carer support, review and supervision. Return of these staff, it's hoped they will be able to fulfil the addressing these structural problems and the return of the care inspector. These actions we're anticipating should be completed by the September series and reported back to the Comhairle. I'm happy to take any questions that the committee may have.
Thanks, Maxwell. Does anybody have any questions for Maxwell? Councillor Finlay-Stewart. Well, somebody's something. Who's got their light on? Yeah. Thanks, Finlay. Cheers.
Thank you, Chair. It's more or less, it's more of a maybe a comment and a question. It's regarding the recruitment of foster carers. I believe that we're now down to quite a small number of foster carers. I think as someone's just retired from that in the last couple of weeks from foster caring, I believe that we may be down to maybe 4 or 5 for the whole of the Western Isles. I certainly haven't seen, if we're trying to recruit, I haven't seen much advertising. I think this should be done as a matter of urgency, because I can see it, if it hasn't already led to children having to be sent away for mainland placement, it certainly will come to the point where it will happen. And maybe we should look at pay structures and that for the foster carers, if we can maybe do something more to entice more people into the fosters to become foster carers. Because if we find ourselves in that situation and the numbers keep going down, foster carers, we are going to end up with our children in mainland placements, and that is going to really affect our budget.
Sorry, I'm happy to answer Councillor's question. The councillor's right in terms of that we are down to 4 foster carers. There is a national recruitment crisis in foster care going on at present, so the Comhairle is encountering something quite similar to other authorities. We are in the process and have 6 inquiries ongoing in terms of recruitment at the moment, and there are wider supporting measures being put in place to enable a full recruitment campaign to take place in the very near future. So it's hoping to address the councillor's points directly, and hopefully I can report back on that in the September series when I'm reporting on the other committee policy reports at that time.
Thanks for that. I'm glad there's a bit of interest anyway, and hopefully we'll get some new carers in.
Okay, thanks, Finlay. Right, so if there are no other questions. Sorry, Vice Chair.
Vice Chair doesn't want.
Do I know you can say anything?
So just to Max, in general, do we know, I mean, there is a national crisis in recruitment. Do we know what are the major obstacles in recruitment? And in the context of our island, small communities, do we know, just if we know, maybe we can address them?
Several things are thematic in terms of the national crisis, including payments, including support, and including issues of particularly trauma support for carers. We're looking to build that into our own policies and practices. I've been undertaking a wider training remit with regards to trauma training. In fact, we have, as part of our Bairns House funding support, we're bringing in an international expert on that, and we'll be running a supportive training programme in September of this year, which will look at both relational care, trauma support and informed recovery. So these themes are thematic across the whole of the UK in regards to not just Scotland as having these difficulties. It's a national crisis that's ongoing, and we've encountered nationally a lot of resignations from fostering and adoption for exactly these same reasons.
Okay. Right. Okay, thanks. So if there are no more questions, do members agree to note the report? Right. Okay, thanks. So we'll adjourn now, and then we'll meet again at the Rising of Sustainable Development.
Sure.
Oh, Derek can come in.
Just we'll need about 5-10 minutes from the conclusion of sustainable development until we can reconvene. And for everyone online, we'll send an email round indicating when we are going to reconvene.
Okay, thanks. To item 10, and this report seeks approval for the Western Isles Library Service Strategic Plan 2025-27. I would like to commend the work of Rennie Mason and her team in developing this strategy, noticing significant community consultation that supported the strategy. And I would like to invite, because it's Neil talking, is Neil, who's giving the report? Neil, you. Oh, sorry, Donald, what do you want to?
Apologies, Chairman. I perhaps should declare an interest that I have a relative working in the library services.
Okay.
But I think I can remain in the meeting.
Yeah, stay in the meeting, it's no bother, yeah. Okay, so who's giving the report? Neil's giving the report, okay? Okay, you're in.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks.
As you say, the report before you contains the Western Isles Library Strategy. As you say, the work that was done by Renee and the team, along with the support from the member officer working groups, really much appreciated and led to what's before you today. I think the key things are, in terms of the strategy, are the four priority areas, if you like, which are related to Gaelic, partnership, programming, and again, the other one being wasn't partnership, it was,
and then community.
yeah. So the actual strategy itself is set out before you, quite challenging, I think, quite could be a stretch for the service to reach, but I think well worth doing, and taking that into account also the beyond adequate discussion that's now ongoing, and the strategy is looking to see this is what the service that we want to have ideally within the Western Isles. So again, I pass it over to members just to, if they've got any questions, and Renee can pick up on all these any sort of issues that people may have. But as I say, a challenge for us to achieve, but I think it's the right direction for us to be going.
Okay, thanks. So does anybody have any questions I want to bring up? Of course, Rennie's here as well to answer questions. So if anybody got any questions. Okie dokie. If there are no. Oh, Vice Chair, sorry.
It's too big. No, I don't have a question. I'm just speaking as the chair of the MAUG. First, wanted to thank all the officers for the work they put in to so we reach this stage with the strategy. And I think just to echo the words what Neil said in terms of the challenge facing us, obviously the strategy to deliver it will be very challenging, and the funding packet that we have at the moment.
And I think as members, we're going to be faced to make a decision, you know, in future about if we want to deliver this strategy as a caller. And if we're happy with it first and we want to deliver it, I think we need to be able to fund it properly. So I think one of the ways of looking at it, I think maybe the MAUG need to reconvene again to look at different options, you know, so in terms of what funding do we have and how do we do it. But yeah, I think I just want to highlight that this is going to be a decision that the members will have to take, that if we're happy with strategy and we support it, we need to fund it. Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, thanks, Vice Chair. Does anyone else have any comments they want to bring in? Councillor Francis Murray.
Thanks very much. I would just like to back up what Councillor Hussain said about reconvening the MAUG. I think it was very useful, but there's still work to be done.
Okay, thanks. Right. Okay, if that's the case. So, I mean, basically, the MAUG has now done its job. It's produced a strategy. Oh, George, right, come on then.
Very briefly.
Very briefly.
Neil, just pass on my personal comments to the staff of the library who are in Stornoway, who are absolutely excellent, very, very helpful, and it'd be nice for someone to say thank you to them from this chamber. Thanks.
Cheers. Thanks, George. Cheers. Right. So, I mean, the MAUG is finished now. The original life of the MAUG is now completed, and it's produced the strategy. However, there was a strong view within the MAUG itself that we wanted to continue the work and to look at taking it further and actually delving in much deeper into how we can actually really look to adapt the service and make the service work in terms of the funding challenges that we have. And so what I want to do is add it. I just wanted to add that as a recommendation to the obviously noting the report or agreeing to the recommendations. And I just want to make that we'll continue that MAUG with a view to trying to do more in-depth work. And I just wonder if everyone's happy with that as well. Okay. Yep. Okay. Right. So if members agree with the report, we'll move on to item 11, which is the capital programme. Learning estate, and this is Scoil Lionel capital investment priority, and it seeks consideration of the prioritisation and replacement for Scoil Lionel as part of a development of a school estates renewal plan. And Mr. Dawn McLeod will speak to the report. Thanks, Dawn.
Yes, thank you, Chair. We bring this report to Chamber today in reflection of ultimately a situation that's developed over the course of the last year. The report recognises that the Comhairle currently has 2 school estate projects within its existing capital programme, the Barravatsa Community Campus, for which there is a report on this agenda, and also the Stornoway Primary Sports Development, for which there also is a report on this agenda. In addition to that, we have been undertaking work and reviews and consideration across the rest of our estate, and the Chamber, I'm sure, is aware that Scoil Lionel in Ness received some funding to the sum of 1.025 million from the Gaelic and Scots Capital Fund to establish a Gaelic hub within that school, a community-based Gaelic hub within the school. As the technical officers were progressing the scoping of that work, it was identified that the condition of Scoil Lionel has significantly deteriorated over the course of the time since the fund was sought, and it's assessed that the condition of the school has deteriorated too significantly to undertake the proposed work on that site in relation to the investment of the 1.025 million. In fact, it is such that the scope of works that are required to address the condition of Scoil Lionel and to bring it up to expected standards now are very significant, and it's been identified that it would therefore be more suitable and advantageous to consider the development of a new school for the Ness community, likely on the same site as the current Scoil Lionel. So the report seeks a decision from the committee today to agree that after the Barravatsa Community Campus and Stornoway Primary Sports Development, that the next immediate priority is the campus at Scoil Lionel, in reflection of the condition that the school is in reflection of the fact that there continues to be capital funding in part associated with the project. And that it is ultimately, in terms of our school estate, the next very immediate priority in terms of overall condition. The report body recognises that in 2023, there was a decision made previously to prioritise development at Scoilínachleach and at Tongue School. And these remain priorities. They were developed as part of a scoping that was undertaken at the time for participation in the Learning Estates Investment Programme Round 3, which was actually just seen in 2022. So these priorities do still remain, and it's not to take away from these priorities, but we have had as a service to recognise that the condition of Scoilínachleach requires it to be prioritised ahead of these two schools at the moment, and to work to secure some additional funding to complete that as the next priority. Sitting within that, and as referenced in the purpose of the report, is also a commitment to develop a full school estates renewal plan, so that as and when capital funding becomes available, we have a determined strategy to identify and prioritise our school estates beyond that for future development, as and when, as I say, capital becomes available. So the report seeks agreement to prioritise the replacement of Scoilínachleach, and also seeks to authorise the Chief Officer for Education and Children's Services, the Chief Financial Officer and the Chief Officer for Assets and Infrastructure to explore together potential funding options to complete the funding package that would be required to progress that project. I'm happy to take questions from the floor, Chair.
Okay, thanks. Does anybody have any questions? Councillor John Crichton.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not a member of your committee, but I welcome this report and recognise that this is a matter of urgency in terms of Scoilínachleach. I also welcome the fact that there's now a focus back on the school estates with the development of schools estates strategic plan. I think that's very welcome, taking the future priorities as it's been lined out. This is, of course, with the backdrop of the challenge of capital funding, which has restricted us and been able to move forward to address some of the challenges of school estates. But I welcome the idea of a strategic plan. I think the priorities going forward are Scoilínachleach and the Wakatua area rather than just Tongue School. So given the fact that we've reflected in this report the need for a strategic plan, I know I'm not a member of your committee, but could we have an additional recommendation that we have a new Western Isles schools programme going forward that reflects the programme that the Chief Executive led some years ago, and take a case to the Scottish Government for funding for that programme to address all the challenges and needs that we have within our school estates at the present time, going forward to the end of this decade. I'm not a member of your committee, so I can't.
No.
I'm just suggesting that as an additional recommendation and as a policy going forward for us as a council.
Okay, all right.
I'll maybe just comment before you move it to the floor, Chair. The intention of looking at developing a school estate strategy is for the very purpose of being ready to pursue a case for capital investment in the school estates. As we know, we're obviously coming into a new term of Parliament, and yet to get a full understanding of the current new Scottish Parliament's view on school estates investment, but we do expect that there will be some, and we would want to be at the forefront of making a case for future capital investment in our school estate, but obviously open to any recommendations that the floor wishes to make in terms of taking that forward in a more specific manner. But the intention of the school estates review is to identify and have a business case ready for the next future investments.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Don. Right, okay, we'll move on to Callum first. Okay, next. And someone who's got them, that's it.
Thanks, Chair. I think my colleague has been a wee bit too charitable. I'm just to say that to him, and I'm probably far more charitable than I can be. But Tongue School, as you rightly say, was ahead in its state in the state of the condition of the building long before Eilean was. I don't know how Eilean has jumped in here, but it's jumped in, maybe. But I feel that I do agree that the state of Eilean at the age of Eilean is getting old. But in the condition of it, I would ask probably the convener to come to have a visit with Tongue and to see that his Tongue is actually worse than Eilean. And I agree with the money has come from a Gaelic, obviously committed from Gaelic. It can easily be done from into Tongue as well and back. Tongue and back school are probably of the condition in the schools and the authority. They are probably of the worst. Back Tongue predates back. Back was built in 1966. So I would say that there should, I would certainly go with an amendment to it, but an amendment to it should include, and I agree with what Mr. Crichton says, that it should be looking at the Lochatua area. I agree entirely. Both schools need massive work on both of them. So I don't know how to word an amendment to include these two schools in it as well, to look at these two in particular. But I just say I'm sort of I was dumbfounded when I saw this that Lionel had jumped ahead of Tongue and back.
Just commuter, but
yes, thank you.
Just
to respond to Councillor McLean,
Yeah.
I wish to reassure the Chamber, having recently been in both schools and having seen the technical report and photographs provided for the condition in Eilean, that its condition is considerably worse than that of Tongue School. And is requiring significant investment. I would also note, Chair, that Tongue School is currently in receipt of a £750,000 investment in building a new canteen, which is just commencing on site and should be ready for opening later this year. So there is investment going into Tongue School that is notable. Also, when in 2022 this was considered by the Chamber, there were consultations with very initial consultations with the community, and at that time there was very strong representation from Tongue, the school and Tongue community, that they wished to retain a school in their own district. But I also recognise that there's clearly a path ahead towards a Scoil Lochatua solution, and that would be work that would have to be explored as part of that school estates review as to what that community's view is as well. It makes sense in terms of other projects that have been progressed in terms of the initial Scoiltúnaire School, Western Isles Schools programme, where several examples within that project of communities coming together to create a very modern and well-resourced new school for a whole district. And I think there's the potential to explore that again in terms of Lochatua. But the decision of 2022 reflected the views at that time and would need considerably more resolution, which would have to be undertaken as part of the review. But I would wish to reassure the Chamber there is significant investment still going on in Tongue School as part of the school meal expansion programme, but the condition of Eilean is without doubt the most serious after Castleby at the moment.
Did you just what? Oh, hang on a minute. Hang on, one at a time. Hang on. Your lights. That's it. Okay.
I don't know how the debate and what but I mean, it wouldn't make any economic sense or educational sense to build a brand new school in Tongue and then retain the school back. The case has to be made for a community area school for that area. And what I'm proposing is a new programme that would address all the estate challenges across the Western Isles, and that we can go to the government or a costed plan and then see how we get on. But I do acknowledge that we have received investment for Tongue School, but it is bursting at the seams. But it is very clear from the technical reports that you've spoken to that Lionel now is a priority. But we will keep pressing for our area.
Okay, I'll bring you back in briefly, Cam, because I want to move on. There's so many other people here who want to speak. And I'll just switch off your mics, everyone else, please. I've got you all noted down anyway, so you'll only do them in the order anyway that I've seen them. So
just going back to what the Chief Officer said about adding new to an old garment, it never works. It doesn't work. And it's not going to work in this instance because the old garment is falling apart. And I can honestly say that that is so. And that was the case in 2022. It's not improved.
Yeah. Thanks, Carl. Right, we'll bring in, who was next? Ray was next, actually, if I remember rightly. So Ray's on the list next. So you don't want to come in, right? Yep, Susan. And well, that's it.
I don't know if it's rather been superseded by this proposal, but so in 2023, we agreed that Leniclet and Tongue School had been identified as the next projects after Barra and Battersea campus. So how much longer would it be? What's the time scale then for these schools if Lionel School becomes the priority? And how do we know that there won't be another priority that's going to push Leniclet School and Tongue School further down?
Yeah, I'd happy to answer that question,
Yeah.
Councillor Thompson. First of all, I do need to clarify that the prioritisation of Tongue School and Scoil were specifically at the time for the purposes of a LEAP 3 bid, as is referenced in paragraph 5.3 of the report. That they were identified for specific purpose at that time. Now, that was not progressed as part of that bidding process in 2022 into 2023. That's not to say that they don't still remain a priority for us. In terms of timescale, that's a very difficult thing to answer because I think we have to go through the process that I think Councillor Crichton is advocating for here of a full review of all our non-WISP estate beyond, our non-WISP estate at Barra and Battersea Community Campus and our proposal, if it's accepted here for Scoil, all the rest of our school estate to prioritise what's needing to be done, both in terms of current statutory compliance and maintenance, but also in potential future renewal. And until we can do that, it's very difficult to quantify costs and put time scale on that. But it's not to take away that there are several schools, and I'm sure members may be aware of other schools other than the ones we're talking about today, that merit consideration in terms of their age, state, suitability, comparison to the WISP schools that are really at a gold standard of provision. So it's intended that the review and any subsequent programme that's developed from that will schedule the work and identify costs once there's a viable project to take forward. But I can't answer today what the timescale for that would be.
Just if I could come back just for a second.
Quickly,
it's actually quite concerning that we would potentially be moved further down the list. Excuse me, for quite some time. The Parent Council have been asking for £5,000 to get vape detectors fitted in the toilets. They have the vape detectors, they just need them fitted, and we can't even get that done. So if that, a year after this chamber voted to support the ban on disposable vapes, we can't take the next step for the want of £5,000 to protect our young people at school. So I would really urge you to have a look down the back of the sofa and see if there's some money to get these vape detectors fitted.
So we're talking on two different purposes potentially here in terms of the wider capital school estates. There is a process of request of minor works that head teachers can submit and works to that are considered on a weekly basis and go into a minor work scheduling programme. But they are undertaken on a priority basis based on the limited resources we have available, and some of that is ends up becoming caught up in different prioritisations. And I haven't seen that request that the Councillor Thompson has referenced, but I will follow up on it and see that it's been submitted through that channel and where in the process of scheduling it is.
Okay, thanks. Councillor Norm MacDonald.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I'm glad I don't have to get into a my school is worse than your school kind of argument. Fortunate enough to have a new school in Point, and I wish every community, I would support them in getting a new community school with space and facilities for our children. The point I want to address is in 2.3. It says significant and serious deterioration of the school. The age of the school is obviously a factor in this. I just wonder, is our underinvestment possibly, or is it just a natural deterioration? And the second thing is, between now and building a new school in Lionel, which has been identified as the third priority, as far as I can make out, there's a significant period of time going to be elapsing since between both things. The safety of the pupils in the school will obviously be a concern. will the school make it to the end of its whatever lifetime? Is it nearly there before a new school is built? And in the interim, will we have to manage the possibility that the school will no longer become a usable facility, and the new school wouldn't have got off the ground and been built? Are we in a danger that the pupils of Lionel may have to be educated elsewhere in the interim? Is that a possibility?
There's probably two parts to the question from Councillor MacDonald there. First of all, in terms of condition, it is a building of varying age. That's, if anyone has been in Scoilianal, and those of you who will know it well, it's a school not of a single generation. It's been evolved. It's a site that's evolved over a long number of years, and various additions have been added to the building over that lifespan, which has actually ended up contributing to aspects of the condition, where there are inaccessible gutters that are causing water ingress and decay and deterioration of the fabric of the building, for example, as well as it's on a flat plane with high exposure to severe weather that's affecting the longevity of the building. So you may consider that part of that might be around upkeep and maintenance, but also it is a building that is nearing the end of its serviceable life. But it's not there yet. And part of the consideration that we're managing here is there's an element of capital funding on the table for that school, but it would not be appropriate to invest that in a building that's not of suitable condition to receive that investment. It's not that the building is completely at the end of its life. Routine maintenance should be able to maintain the existing building to a satisfactory level for the pupils until a new school is able to be commissioned and built. It's not at the degree that it's unserviceable and would be presenting risk in the short term. It is going to require some degree of maintenance to maintain it in that condition. But the issue that we're presented with is that it's not in either condition or suitability to invest so heavily into a building that is ultimately, aside from condition, ultimately lacking in fitness for purpose for a 21st century education as well. So that is why, with the level of investment that would be needed to make good the existing building, we are getting close to the territory of what it would be to invest in building a new school on the same site. So these are the drivers for the consideration. But I would wish to reassure the Chamber that the condition of the building will see it through the immediate short term with reasonable maintenance. And some of that maintenance has already been undertaken since the technical assessment has been done in terms of gutter repairs and cleaning where they're accessible, some roofing repairs and other works to address some of the issues of deterioration. And that will continue until this is resolved.
Thanks for that.
Okay. Right. I think it was Councillor McSween online was next.
Hi, thanks for letting me in, and apologies, I missed the start of this subject due to another commitment. And I agree that it's not healthy just to be straight in and going, my school's worse than your school. And I listening to Councillor MacLean there, I appreciate his comments. And I haven't been in Scoilabhac or Town School in quite some time. But one of the first things that I was asked to do when I became a councillor was raise issues with fungus growing on the walls in Scoilianal, and while things have been rectified, they're not getting any better. And whereas we're looking at probably lots of negatives in regards to the condition of the school, but there's a significant number of positives and opportunities to come out of this. So should we agree to go ahead with this, and I think we have to as a matter of urgency, then it would be very welcome and very much required.
Okay, thanks. I think we'll just bring in Angus next. You're next, Angus, and I'll bring the convener in. He's got a light on there now. Ian.
Chair, thank you for letting me come in. I do recall when I was in the position that you are currently in, that from time to time we would have brought to the committee a condition list of all of the schools. Now that's quite some considerable time ago, and at that point I do recall the Tongue School was pretty much top on the list in terms of being replaced. And I haven't been to Tongue School in recent years, but I seem to remember that it was an amalgam of bits and pieces that were stuck together over a period of years. And I mean, I accept what the director says. Apologies. There I go again. But I prefer to call him the director.
I do as well, to be honest. I do
you know, adding on a new bit to what's there is not really ideal. I mean, Tongue School was certainly in need of being replaced quite some years ago. And if it is now the aspiration of the people in the area that there should be a new area school, then that should be pretty high up on the list of priorities. This is the irritation of having priority lists. If we can't afford to actually action them at the time, then something else will inevitably jump over it and become a bigger priority. I recognise that too. But I certainly wouldn't want to see that the area which includes the Tongue and Tulster schools, if we're going to go for an amalgamation school and a new school there, then that should be on the list as the next priority. And I'd like to see perhaps a report brought to us like we've had in the past, which gives us a list of all the schools and the position that they are currently in, so that we know exactly what we face going forward in terms of finance. And I think that would help us also to talk to the Scottish Government about the kind of needs that we have in terms of retaining our school establishment in the future.
Okay, thanks. I mean, we can do that. We should have done that in the past. It has been done in the past, right? No, if it was. I think, convener, you're next.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much, Donald, for this report. Now, I share Councillor McLean's frustration. You know, I see where you're coming from, Councillor McLean. You know, Tongue and Scoil College were put top of the list after the Barran Watershed campus in here in 2023, but the condition of Scoil has really deteriorated over the last few years. There was over £1 million awarded from the Scottish Government, you know, for a dedicated kind of a Gaelic campus, Gaelic hub in the school in 2023. But once, you know, they delved into it deeper, they saw the condition of the school, and it was just, you know, putting money down the drain. In fact, £1 million was spent on renovating the school, and it was probably more efficient to build a new school. But I think I would go with what Councillor Crichton says and see, you know, add an amendment to the recommendation that we look at all our schools estate. You know, the Schleene College, there's, you know, Tongue School, Scoilavac, there's also Stornoway Primary. We were talking about Stornoway Primary and Laxdale in here in 2016-17. It doesn't seem to have moved. So I think, you know, the likes of Scoilndorp as well, I think we'll have to look at all our school estate over the next while. But at the moment, you know, like I go with what's recommended in this report, but I'm agreeing with Councillor Crichton about looking at all the schools estate going forward. Okay. And going to the government to see if we can get a Scoilnúr Mark II.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Commissioner. Ian, to your next time.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I fear Scoil is getting pushed into the long grass here. You're asking members in here to approve these recommendations, and I'm sure a bulk of them have never maybe been in Scoil or are aware of its condition. So how can we make a fair appraisal on these recommendations? I mean, surely it would have been better to have a report on Tongue and Leanacloch done to go along with this, for these recommendations were approved.
Okay.
I would agree with what Deanna said. I fear that if we go with the proposal that Leanacloch and Tongue, Susan quite rightly alluded to, will be thrown into the long grass, as many projects have been. I'll be quite honest with you. And that's my biggest fear. I can understand in one sense it is, but I know that when it comes to to looking at the whole school estate, the two schools that we're talking about, that were top of the list before will be cast into the long grass. That's my fear. That's why I would not go along with what Councillor Crichton says. I would not go with it.
Okay.
I would just note that one of the reasons that we are in the position that we find ourselves in is that there is an element of capital investment already sitting associated with Scoilianal. And if we enter into a much more protracted process, there is a significant risk of losing that funding. And if we're to commit to completion of that project, then this is the likely route ahead. And in terms of advice to the committee, my own view would be to seek to have that addition to the recommendations that has been debated. It's not for me to make that recommendation, but I would certainly think that it would address the concerns that have been raised in the room today in terms of projects being kicked into the long grass. There is no intention of that. This is not to take away from the prioritisation and recognition that there already is in relation to Tongue School and Scoilianal, and for that matter, some of the other schools that have already been raised here today. But that, I think, if we're serious about trying to move towards delivery of these, that's going to have to sit as part of what Councillor Crichton is recommending here about a wider school estates programme. And that seems, in my view, the clearest way ahead to get into delivery of these projects, rather than tussling over particular individual schools.
Okay, thanks, Tom. Let me bring Malcolm in first, because you were waiting to come in, Malcolm. I'll bring Donald in at the end.
It was, but a lot of the points I was going to bring up.
The only just switch off your light, please, Tom. Right, do it again. Okay.
Sorry, a lot of the points I was going to bring up have gone. I was just going to mention the likes of Tongue School. The schoolhouse there was built at the same time as the school and was demolished, what, 10, 12 years ago? Perhaps Callum knows better than me. But it just shows you that even a house has to be demolished on the site.
Yeah.
All the other points were brought up, especially by Councillor MacDonald being a good clan member. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay. Just let me bring Kenny in. Just.
Obviously, I wasn't party to discussions on previous lists and decisions, but as in anything, priorities change over time, and I think even in good housekeeping and looking after our own homes, any plans we have to change when we suddenly find there's something gone wrong that wasn't planned before. It doesn't help that we've been starved of funding for many years. But I think, as Councillor Crichton said, if there's a plan and there's a desire for a new school for the Broad Bay area there, then I think that has to be looked at first, and it would be wrong to invest money in a building that's then going to be surplus to requirement in a few years' time. And we're faced with something that's developed, and we have to decide on that, and it's a difficult decision to make. I don't think it's a case of kicking things into the long grass for anything, but then in any responsible organisation has to prioritise which of its assets it's going to look after and which one is most of the need at any particular time. And if it means that we have to change priorities, because if we don't do Scoilianal now, does that mean that it's going to go, I'm going to have to move all those children out of there? And where are they going to go if it deteriorates in the next 10 years? There isn't the same, from what we're hearing from yourself, there isn't the same needs in Back and in Tongue as there is in Lionel. And if that's the case, then we have to go with where the biggest priority is and get it dealt with as quickly as possible, at the same time, as Councillor Crichton said, as getting money for the others that are long awaited as well.
Okay, thanks, Ken. I'm just going to bring Donald in here, and then I'll bring the leader in straight away after that, because I want to lead.
Thank you, Chair, and another member of the committee again. Malcolm mentioned Tongue Schoolhouse. I have a great affinity to that building because I used to spend my summer holidays there when my uncle was head teacher. So I'm in with the bricks in terms of the school and its location. But what I want to emphasise is this isn't just about Tongue, it's about the future of educational provision from Tongue to Tulster. And I think to allay any fears of this being kicked into the long grass, that's why we need a business case put together, a strategy, a programme to go to government for funding, and then we'll have a plan in place and then we can execute it.
Yeah. Leader.
Thank you very much, Chair. Really interesting discussion. The question I was going to ask, and I'll wait for Donald to come back because I know he's liaising with Derek, but it's a question for Donald. Just in terms of this funding that's available for the Gaelic school, is there a risk that we lose that if there's not a decision taken in the short term?
I think that's highly likely, Leader. Yes, ultimately that's been associated with this project for a few years now, and whilst there are informal indications that we'll be able to retain that funding, it is with the intention of delivering on the commitment that drew the funding in the first place, which was the establishment of the Gaelic hub in Scoilianal. And in early discussions, they've been agreeable to that staying within the development of a new school, but it's not going to wait forever. And we would have to continue to make a case to be able to retain it, and there are no guarantees that will be able to happen if that sits as part of a much wider school estate renewal programme.
So my follow-on question was just in terms of timescales for looking at the whole school estate. I'm assuming because this report's in front of us that even if we were to do that process, a decision would need to be made on Leonel before then.
In terms of both the money that's already there and trying to seek opportunities to secure capital for the rest of the pot that will be required for Scoilianal, there are potential funding streams that are becoming available to the Comhairle to address that within the schemes that are coming on stream to include Scoilianal in that, and there's an opportunity to progress quickly with a solution for Scoilianal that doesn't necessarily risk the timelines of the others. So the reason that we're looking to seek to get the endorsement to proceed with Scoilianal is to make sure we secure the funding that we have already on the table from Scottish Government, to try and take advantage of any immediate capital that becomes available to complete that project, and in recognition of the significant immediate deterioration of the school. It's not to take away from either the identification of the schools that we had already done, or what Councillor Crichton has suggested about the wider school estate project identification to develop into a new WISP2, for want of a better name, project that would deliver on the wider school estate.
Thank you. Just a final point. I think the school condition survey of all the schools is going to be really important, and it needs to be done probably quickly, because obviously this Lionel situation has developed just because we had extra funding, and we wouldn't have been aware of that if it wasn't for that. So I think it's really important that we do this piece of work, and I'm in agreement with Donald. We actually need to know what we need to know, what we need to do, and having that set out in a way that we can then go to government and look for funding, like WISP2. I think we've talked about it in that way. I think that makes sense. Obviously disappointing with my son just going to first year in Linneclet that there is going to be improvements in that facility, but I think we just need to be fair. We need to do this process, and if what we're being told is that the condition is such that it's not likely or even close that anywhere else would be in a worse condition than this, not excluding Castleby obviously, because that is number one priority, then I think that's a sensible suggestion for an additional recommendation, and I'd be happy to move that as a member of the committee.
I would wish to just reassure in terms of what the leader has raised there. We've been working with colleagues in Asset Finance and Resources about that compilation. We've identified routine maintenance, statutory compliance works, health and safety related, and estate fabric and suitability in terms of helping to identify future priorities. So the colleagues are working on that as we speak, and would happily take it to future committee as a start of the conversation that's required for the rest of the estate.
Okay, thanks, Paul. I mean, historically, we've always taken advice from technical services engineers, and they always do it. As I say, as Angus has said, we've always done this condition, and this is why this jumped the queue, because it was identified as in very, very bad condition. And on top of what Don said about the capital funding, that's why we've brought this as it to today. So, I mean, I would just go along with agree with the recommendations as it is, and then add Donald's. Well, you're going to bring in, you just bring in the recommendation.
Yeah, just if I've summarised correctly what I think the views of all the members are. Wonder if this wording is appropriate. That the Comhairle undertake a review of the school estate to develop a school estate strategic plan with a view to preparing a business case to Scottish Government for a Western Isles Schools Programme 2.
I think the leader said he would move that.
You can move that, yeah.
To support that.
Mhm. Yeah, but just to get the word in whether
Yeah.
everyone in the committee is agreeing with that.
I'll second that.
Yeah. Is that agreed then?
And can I, in addition to that, and put on the fact that we look at Tongue and Scoilín in particular within the school estate. I don't know how you could word that, but looking at these initially, I still am afraid that this is going to go on, and I certainly won't see anything being done in Tongue. It looks like it, but that's my fear. It is my fear. And being first on being top of the list in 2022, 23, and 26 now being thrown off it. And Lena Clegg will be feeling the same.
Well, Lena
is in as much need as a secondary, but my emphasis is that you prioritize that within the school estate.
See, that's why I can't do that, because Lena Clegg have got the same issue. So they would make the same argument to you.
I'm saying Tongue and Lena Clegg together. That's what I'm saying.
It's all included in the strategy.
But the problem is that it's all included. That's my problem.
Yeah.
That it's too wide, and it's too. In other words, it's going to take a lot longer.
Martin, do you want to come into this? Put your light on. Who's got their light on? Switch your light off, please, Ray. And I'll get you. Can you switch your light off, please? I'll bring the.
Thank you. There's a number of interesting points. I think in terms of the most immediate point, and perhaps a point that Councillor McCormick made, there is, as far as I'm aware, an obligation for the authority to return the core fact summary to Scottish Government each year. So it looks at condition, it looks at capacity, and it looks at suitability of each building within the learning estate, so nursery, primary and secondary provision. So so we should be able to, sorry, it's a level of detail I quite haven't got into as yet, but certainly would look to review that with colleagues in education and assets and infrastructure, and we should be able to bring a report in the near future that would set out what the current position is with regards to the core facts summary. I think longer term, I think there needs to be an integrated plan in terms of how we tackle the underlying conditions, some of the pressures, some of the demographics that we're experiencing within the school estate. I would, for those that were in the previous committee, John Cunningham presented a paper on the consultation that's happening around the proposed infrastructure investment plan. So within that plan, you would sit the planned investment in the school estate programme. The current LEAP programme, which is a learning estate investment programme managed by Scottish Futures Trust on behalf of Scottish Government, is nearing the end of its life. So the Comhairle wasn't able or didn't access any funding through that programme. It did through the previous programme, the Schools for the Future programme, which in fact funded Dalibra, or 50% of Dalibra, at the time, and it was the sixth and final school that was added into this programme. The timing of that is unknown in terms of how they're going to set out their priorities in terms of infrastructure right across the board, but then focusing in on the education estate. So I think we do have an opportunity to influence that. There has been discussion about the reintroduction of revenue funded programmes to support capital, given that the capital element within Scottish Government is pretty restricted at this point in time due to other commitments I've made to the A9, New Monklands Hospital. There's a whole raft of things which are eating up the capacity which Scottish Government has in terms of its capital ability to fund projects. I'm actually meeting with Scottish Futures Trust on Tuesday morning, so I can certainly ask the question. And in terms of timing, what their timing is in terms of that new programme, once the consultations have been removed. So I've been listening with interest, I think, to all of the conversations here. If you're happy, I can take it away with colleagues from education, assets and infrastructure, and come back with a follow-up report.
Okay, yeah. Okay, thanks. Thanks a lot, Martin. I mean, I'm happy to go with the recommendation as it is. I mean, it's a case of you can't please everyone here, because it is between a rock and a hard place, whatever we do here. And so I'm happy to go with the recommendation as it is, with the extra recommendation that we put together a West Isles strategy. Yeah, I'll just bring Ray in, and then I see Donald, and then that's it. No more after that. because we'll be here all night otherwise.
So can you tell me exactly what the recommendation is? Because that it doesn't affect the two projects that are presently going through, which is Barra and Stornoway.
What, Stornoway Primary? Oh, no, it doesn't affect them, no. No, doesn't affect. I'll confirm that right now.
So it's a question of putting forward priorities once a report has been done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sweeney, I'll bring you in last and that's it.
Yeah, just a clarification. Are we agreeing the recommendations for Lionel and adding this to it?
Yeah.
Thank you. That's fine.
Okay. Right.
My amendment of the amendment is incompetent.
Are you making an amendment? Are you putting an amendment?
Well, I added to it, and I said instead of this, that there would be an emphasis on. But then again, if the chief executive is going away and he's going to put a report, then maybe it doesn't mean much to the additional amendment.
So what? Yeah, clarify exactly what your amendment, what you're adding, wanting to add to this.
Derek, help me out in wording. It's to do with that the priority be given to Tongue and to Lenaclet in the school estates. What was it, Derek?
No.
Could we maybe suggest something if recognizing previously identified priorities or something like that?
Big item, yeah, that's it.
Well, that's about review of the school estate, recognizing the previously agreed priorities to develop a school estate strategic plan with a view to preparing a business case to Scottish Government.
And Chief Executive. Yeah.
Chief Executive report following the meeting with Scottish Futures Trust.
Yeah, they're not going to be happy. So this is it. Okay, so that's it. Is everyone happy with that? Was everyone going to agree to this? What's that?
Stop.
So it's been one of them days, tell me. It's been one of them years. Okay. You can just put this out now, are you? Okay.
We'll include that.
Yeah. Right, okay, so is everyone happy with that? I'm not saying happy is the word, but is everyone going to accept that? Right, okay. Goodness. Move on to the next item. What's the next item? Oh, Barra. Oh, no. Right. Right. Item 12. This is a standing item on the agenda and provides an update on progress on the Barra and Vathsay Community Campus project. Mr. Dan McPhail will speak to the report and answer any questions, and I'm sure Martin will come in as well. Okay, Dan, you're in.
Thank you, Chair. Mindful of time, I'm mindful also that this report will be considered at Policy and Resources also. So I'll perhaps curtail my comments to those that immediately affect the committee or interest the committee. Sure, all of the project interests the committee, but those that are perhaps more pertinent to education. And in the first paragraph 2.1 just summarizes some of the things that we've been doing over the last few months, and in particular looking at the accommodation schedules and reviewing the needs of particularly the practical subjects. Our lessons learned from the Western Isles Schools project and particularly schools such as City Scott is that this can be quite a challenge sometimes because of the bespoke nature of the class cohort sizes and the challenges around timetabling. There's a danger that you make a school too small. There's a danger that you make a school too big, and it's trying to find that sweet spot. So that's what we've been doing over the last few weeks and months, which has culminated in a revised accommodation schedule. And that'll inform us as we begin the design development process again with the design team and the contractor. It'll inform that process and enable us to develop the business case for the project. We've also been liaising with the other key stakeholders, Barra Children's Centre, and we met with the Parent Council as well in the last couple of weeks. So we're continuing to engage these key stakeholders in relation to education. And in as much as we've done a detailed review with the practical subjects, we'll go again in August and maybe have another round of sessions with the more generic teaching areas, including the primary department and early years. in relation to the rest of the report, I think 2.2 covers two crucial bits of information that are still outstanding from Scottish Government, which are important in the context of getting a better understanding of the funding mechanism. And that's important because over the next few weeks or months, hopefully we'll be re-engaging the design team, the contractor, spending a lot of money, and we need to be clear as to how that money or that funding is going to be drawn down. And I'll allow the Chief Executive to come in a moment and explain what he's been doing along with the Chief Executive of NHS Western Isles in order to tease that information out from government. The project board met recently, and that was good because we were able to confirm that NHS Western Isles were content with the procurement strategy, and that then now allows us to seek pre-construction fee proposals from a tier 1 contractor. So hopefully over the next few weeks and months, progress will pick up on design development. And in addition to that, we're also in the middle of a procurement process in relation to procuring a healthcare planner, who will help us develop the business case, not just for the health and social care elements, but for all the other parts of the campus too. Because as we know that there are other agencies, this is a multi-agency project, and to that end, we will also be trying to engage again with UHI and Police Scotland, who have a significant interest in the site too. So I think, bearing in mind we'll be considering this report again tomorrow. Hopefully, I'll just leave it there and allow Chief Executive to come in.
Yeah.
Yes, Mr. McPhail outlined, I've been having some separate discussions with Gordon Jameson, the Chief Executive of NHS Western Isles. A couple of key things. One, we've agreed a single project lead in Mr. McPhail, who will take forward the proposal on behalf of our respective organisations. And that's the kind of equivalency that we've asked for Scottish Government, given it sits between education and healthcare. We see this as a single integrated project. We don't see it as a school and as a healthcare facility. It's a community campus, and we deliver it in the context of that. I think more importantly, between us, we drafted a joint letter to the Scottish Government, to the respective senior people, seeking a meeting, looking for clarity around two elements of that. One is around the funding and the drawdown of the funding, and two is the nature and format of the business case, because as I alluded to in the previous conversation, the Learning Estate Investment Programme had certain criteria in terms of governance and business case preparation. NHS is a completely separate and distinct procurement, governance and assurance process, which they implement for their own capital projects. But the intention here is to deliver a single integrated business case that meets the needs of the various departments within the Scottish Government, such that we're not having to repeat things or to construct data in different ways to suit each organisation's different respective governance models. So that's the intention, and once we get that clarity, we can proceed really with all pace to move forward with the project, particularly around the key funding that we will need to go through the design development stage, which could be many millions of pounds before we actually start work on site. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chief Executive. Does anybody have any questions? Please, no.
It is quick. It's just off the back of one of the previous items. I sort of forgot about it. What's happening with the library? It's just not really been mentioned. I'm wondering if you've been in contact with the library service to discuss whatever's happening with that. Cheers.
Yeah, okay. Sorry, go on. You're in now, yes. You weren't in.
Yeah, just to clarify your question, in relation to its inclusion in the scope of the new project, is that what you referred to? Yes. So the library remains as part of the scope. It's an important part of the scope. It would be a community library and located in the building where it's easily accessible. And if you refer back, I'm sure you've still got a copy of the campus design that was approved in 2022. There isn't any material change to the library. It's very much part of the scope and a crucial part of the scope, because it's located there at the front of the building, along with the other community facilities such as the leisure centre, women fitness suite, and so on.
Ian Archie.
Thank you, Chair. I'm not a member of your committee. I would like to thank Dan and the Chief Executive for visiting Barra at the start of the month, and very, very useful for everyone, and hopefully we'll see you soon. I would like to remind you, or to give us a wee nudge about the reference group to get that up and running, because everything else is kind of working away the background. So I think we need to get things going on the ground as well to keep the community engaged, and it would also be useful after when the time comes to put something into Comhairle, you know, just to keep everyone informed. It's all about information, and I think so. Thank you.
We'll keep that up and running. Yeah. Okay, that's great. Thanks. Did you want to say something else?
Yeah, just to say, as discussed with you earlier on, we're happy to facilitate that reference group meeting as soon as you would like, and if not before the end of the school term, then certainly at the start of the next. The summer holiday period now might be a bit of a challenge for some stakeholders, but why don't we take a sounding on that? We've got the list of stakeholders that are on the reference group. Why don't we take a sounding on what their thoughts are, and if they wish to meet between now and the end of June or beginning of July, then let's go for it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Right. Okay. So, if there's no other questions, no other comments, do members agree to note the progress with the delivery of the Barra and Battersea Community Campus? Right. So, item 13 is reports outstanding, which is for noting. Now we're going to move into private, and the next scheduled meeting of the committee will be on the 22nd of September 2026. And so can I ask all non-relevant officers and members of the public to please leave the chamber. Thank you. Classic. Right. Okay. So we'll move on to item